Good morning. The August 17th, 2023 meeting of the Charter Authorizing Panel is called to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Department of Education and ask that you please silence all your electronic devices. The goal is to facilitate a fair and responsible hearing, so therefore I ask that each person speaking please state your name and title for the record. I ask that you continue to speak clearly into the microphone throughout your presentation for the benefit of the panel, this audience, and the viewing audience. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and a transcript of the meeting will be posted on the DESE website. So good morning, everybody. Good morning to the panel. Ms. Wagner.
Good morning, panel members. Chastity Wagner with AD Legal. Going to give you guys our hearing procedures, and then we will get started. So the applicant gets 20 minutes to present after the chair has sworn in everyone who wants to testify, of course. Okay. Everybody's going to keep going, but I get thrown on. Okay, no, you're okay. There we go. Now everybody can hear me for sure. Okay, so to start again, the chair has to swear everybody in who is going to be testifying. The applicant then will get 20 minutes to present. The chair, of course, can afford more time if you so wish. We have not received any public comment, correct, Ms. Simmons? Correct. We have not received any public comment, and we have also not received any opposition. So after they conclude their presentation, we will do the legal review and then proceed to discussion and deliberation.
And then North Little Rock, is it being pulled from
Yes, sorry. So North Little Rock submitted an amendment request, but they actually pulled that amendment request because they can comply and don't need the waiver. So, perfect.
Thank you very much. Ms. Summons?
Good morning, Dory Summons, DESE Charter Office. Garfield Scholars Academy has submitted an application to establish an open enrollment charter beginning in the 24-25 academic year. The charter will follow a traditional educational model, and we have Ms. Joy Sawyer who will be speaking on behalf of Garfield.
Thank you. Well, all those who plan to testify in support of the charter, please rise and raise your right hand. All right. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. All right. Thank you very much. You may begin.
Good morning. Of course. Okay. My name is Joy Sawyer. I am a 26-year educator in the state of Arkansas. I have taught in 5 different school districts, some rural, 1 in Texas and 2 in Northwest Arkansas. We have with us today Melanie Kennan, who has 35 years in education, teaching, training teachers. Her credentials go far beyond that. We have our PTA president here today, Jenny Setzer. Will Neighbors is our CFO. Our mayor of Garfield, Gary Blackburn, and then also Senator Joshua Bryant is here today in support. I am very excited to bring to you today an overview of an amazing opportunity that we would like to provide in the city of Garfield. Rogers will be closing the Garfield Elementary School in the 24-25 school year, and it is in the middle of an agricultural community. It is the heart of that community. The surrounding areas are Avoca, Gateway, Little Flock, and Pea Ridge. So we have several farming agricultural communities right there in that spot. I'm sorry, the clicker.
The switch may need to be
Sorry.
turned on.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Oh, okay. It's just
There you
not. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Once Rogers does close Garfield Elementary School, there will be no elementary school no neighborhood school in Garfield. The closest school will be about 10 to 12 miles away, depending on where you live in the Garfield school zone. The Garfield Scholars Academy will exist to empower our scholars to be purposeful learners, critical and creative thinkers, motivated citizens and leaders, and determined lifelong learners through our innovative emphasis in the areas of economics and agriculture. These are the members of our founding board, and they have committed their time and support to see this mission come to fruition. To carry out our mission, we will capitalize on innovative methods such as individual goal setting, providing opportunities to think critically and creatively, multi-age grouping, hands-on authentic experiences, multi-sensory learning for neurodiverse learners, involving parents and community in all aspects of education, and creating a community where learning is valued and differences are respected. We are committed to creating strong relationships with families and partnerships with community members to ensure each scholar reaches their full potential. We are committed to creating an equitable, inclusive learning environment for scholars that is character-focused and addresses the unique skills and needs of our students. Small group and multisensory learning that tap into students' best learning styles and strategies will be used in delivery of traditional curriculum. This is a strength-based model which capitalizes on each student's best way to learn rather than how they are deficient or don't fit the norm. At GSA, we will seek to be innovative in our curriculum by providing relevant learning experiences in authentic settings for our scholars. With a focus on economics and agriculture, scholars will collaborate in multi-age teams to complete projects. Problem-based and project-based learning experiences will have students highly engaged in their own learning. Scholars will have the opportunity to show their learning by participating in real-life application activities. GSA will also provide a focus on self-awareness, strong character, leadership skills, and what it means to be part of a community. Our programmatic features include a naturalistic, hands-on approach in learning, family and community involvement for learning, strength-based, individualized approach to learning, and an interdisciplinary curriculum. These features serve to engage learners with high interest, highly engaging experiences. As we grow and progress, our curriculum will become more and more interwoven with our team's initiatives while still providing the essential foundation skills for learning success. Scholars will also receive targeted lessons in character building and be given ample opportunities to practice these skills throughout the school day, as strong character and civic mindedness will be part of our school culture. Our unique teams initiative will have students out of their seats and into learning labs where they will collaborate with both grade level and multi-age groups to complete projects and solve problems related to economics and agriculture in creative ways. GSA will partner with Economics Arkansas to provide training for teachers in economics education. Scholars will become entrepreneurs as they apply these lessons to the engineering design process to create and produce real items that can be sold at their maker's market. As we build our program, scholars will learn how to produce, prepare, and preserve fresh foods that they grow themselves. We will provide opportunities for our community to partner in the work of our gardens and greenhouses to provide fresh food for their families at home. Community partnerships with local farms will serve as field experiences in gardening and animal care. Garfield Scholars Academy will serve to provide scholars with a strong foundation in 21st century skills that they will use whether they return to the family farm after graduation, go on to run a large corporation, or anything in between. Math and science are at the heart of our team's initiative. GSA will strive to build foundational skills in math and science so that scholars have the knowledge and understanding they need to apply these skills in real-world situations and develop a strong self-efficacy that will carry them into junior high, high school, and beyond. GSA's team's approach will foster individual responsibility and accountability, create an appreciation for individual differences and strengths through collaborative multi-age groupings, teach perseverance and the importance of seeing a project through to the end, and develop self-efficacy to ensure scholar success. Scholars will cultivate a strong self-image in themselves and others and grow to be collaborative team players with the ability to think critically and creatively when solving problems. Our teachers will use individual learning plans to help scholars set realistic educational goals. Leadership will ensure that scholars have the support they need to reach those goals. Garfield Scholars Academy realizes the importance of family involvement in a child's education. We will seek to involve families by providing opportunities such as parent universities, where parents can learn how to support their students at home. Parents will be encouraged to participate in volunteer opportunities through our PTA, school events, and shared decision-making. We also understand the importance of engaging our community as volunteers, mentors, and school committee members. We will hold the highest of expectations for our faculty and staff to be committed to student achievement and growth and to engage frequently with our parents and our community. Our faculty and staff will also be part of the decision-making team as we grow our school and our programs. GSA will work to develop positive and long-lasting relationships within the communities it serves with students, parents, and other stakeholders. In year 1, our plan is to serve K through 5. In year 2, we plan to add both pre-K and 6th grade, and 7th and 8th grades will be added the next 2 years respectively. Our core curriculum has been selected from the state-approved curriculum lists. You will find a proposed list of curriculum selections at the back of your packet. We've included a sample of a daily schedule. In our presentation. Please note that there is protected time for English language arts, math, and interventions and extensions across grade levels. All students will participate in our TEAMS initiative daily as a school-wide activity. TEAMS stands for technology, economics, agriculture, math, and science. It is also reflective of the culture of community within Garfield and the surrounding community. TEAMS focus lies within the economics and agriculture curriculums, which will directly address the needs of the students in these agricultural communities. Core content is woven into our TEAMS curriculum. Scholars will use all types of technology as they engage in learning lab activities. Use of electronic and non-electronic technologies is embedded in our unique approach. Students will experience entrepreneurial opportunities through a farmer's market and a maker's market. This includes learning how to write business plans, budgets, strategic goal plannings, etc., all of the things that go along with starting a business. Students will participate in our Farm to Table initiative to support both our cafeteria and their families. Scholars will be involved in the development of gardens, greenhouses, and pollinator gardens. Students will develop a strong efficacy in mathematics by applying their learning to real-world problems. Indoor and outdoor labs will support science learning and provide hands-on project-based experiences. TEAMS, it's what makes Garfield Scholars Academy special. TEAMS creates opportunities for critical and creative thinking and problem solving by partnering multi-age scholars in collaborative teams. All these components are driven by our mission to empower purposeful learners, critical and creative thinkers, motivated citizens, and leaders and determined lifelong learners. Committed educators, supportive families, and an engaged community all work together to ensure the success of Garfield Scholars. Thank you.
Thank you.
Melanie Kennan will address our budget.
Hello, I'm Dr. Melanie Kennan. As Joyce said, I have over 30 years of experience in education, having trained teachers in 3 colleges in Arkansas, as well as been a classroom teacher, and worked here at the State Department in Pathwise and Praxis 3 in that program. So I was very excited when I had the opportunity to come alongside Ms. Sawyer in her vision of what Garfield could be. In your packets that you've just been given, you'll notice that we have a new address for our facility, as well as new budget estimation based on the acquisition of this new space and the recommendations of APSRC to lower the student enrollment to a more realistic number in the first year. We've lowered enrollment numbers for the first year from 200 to 150, based on the numbers Garfield Elementary School has seen in the past years. In examining the Rogers Public Schools zoning map, there are 116 students in the Garfield school zone in the 22-23 school year. 105 of those students attended school in Garfield in 22-23. We anticipate that some number of those missing students will return to the charter due to our curricular focus. Additionally, because both Garfield and the surrounding rural communities of Little Flock, Avoca, Lost Springs, Pea Ridge, and Gateway are primarily agricultural communities, we think we have seen a lot of interest from the families that live in those communities, particularly because of the agricultural and economic model of the school. We plan to actively recruit and draw from a number of students who are currently being bused into Rogers or Pea Ridge from these nearby communities. There has also been a lot of interest expressed by families of current homeschool students, as well as, while we didn't anticipate drawing students from Eureka Springs, we've had some families reach out to us that work in Rogers and would be passing the school on the way. Our new budget reflects both a change in student enrollment and the budget to support it. It will, if you'll turn in your packet to this budget, several changes are worth noting. Because we are partnering with the First Baptist Church in Garfield, many of the startup costs could be shaved or reallocated to fit this space. The church held a called meeting and voted to lease use of the facilities and grounds to us for $1 a month, plus any extra utilities or insurance expenses that we may have. You have a copy of this lease agreement in your packet, at the back of your packet. This shows an incredible commitment that the community of Garfield has to provide a local school for its students. You may also notice on page 5 of the budget shortfall of $89,173.25 for year 1. While we wish that was not the case, we also realize that this doesn't paint the whole picture. We have private community donors who are ready to donate to Garfield Scholars Academy the minute that we are approved as a charter. In your packet, you will also notice that we have $54,000 in pledges already. They were that happened just in this past week. So we have folks ready and willing to support the school. We will be seeking federal nutrition reimbursements that may be as much as $40,000 back to us, IDEA Part B funding, and we hope to tap into the Rural Education Initiative, which we qualify for. We have applied for the APSRC grant, which could net $1.25 million should we be awarded that to handle planning and startup cost. We've reached out about funding to representatives of the Jim Walton's Personal philanthropy group regarding startup funding should we not receive the APSRC grant. We understand that there's program funding also available through the Walton Family Foundation as well. We are exploring federal grants supporting farm-to-table and greenhouse programs, and are also looking into agricultural industry partners to come alongside us. Year 2 shows a surplus of $58,531.88 without adding any of the other funding sources that we anticipate we will have. While the deficit in year 1 and the surplus in year 2 are not in and of themselves huge amounts, we are confident that the community is ready and willing to support a charter school in Garfield, Arkansas that meets the needs of their students in an agricultural setting. Our model makes us different from any other school in the area. Our focus on multi-age grouping, on students having the opportunity to explore to build a greenhouse, to explore farming further, and to also be schooled in economics principles so that when they graduate, they are able to make good choices about going into a business, starting a business, or going into the family farm. So with that being said, do you have any questions for us?
I think we may have public comment at this time, and then we'll come back. And
Okay. All right. Thank you.
do we have public comment at this time? Yes.
Hey, good morning. My name is my name is Joshua Bryant, and I'm state senator for this district of Eastern Benton County. I'll try to be brief. It's not common that state politicians sometimes can be brief, but brevity is what I'm after here. And first, I want to say that I have been a justice of the peace for this part of the county. I've been in the state house and moved on in the state senate. So I've got a good gauge of what the communities are out there and what type of involvement that they seek from their community. And out of the numerous town halls I've conducted on different issues from taxation to even the LEARNS Act, when Garfield Schools and this idea came up, and in conjunction with the decision that Rogers Public Schools had to make to fold this facility in, by far exceeded anything I've ever seen. I think every member of Garfield community showed up in that gymnasium to visit about this. So I know the community engagement is large there. Some other common things that you may not know is Benton County is the #1 ag producer of the state. As our population grows, and we just broke top 100 metropolitan statistical areas with 1 million people planning to be in there by 2045, obviously agriculture is going to start to dwindle down as urban sprawl takes over. This concept will be embraced because you've got still generations of people there that want to see this. They want to have community, and this area from Pea Ridge over to the lake and down towards into the urban sprawl areas is agriculture. And so I know that they will have active engagement into this as they had with Garfield Schools for the last 80 to 100 years. Another thing that they probably didn't mention is Rogers Public Schools seeks to decommission the facility out there at Garfield. I hope this charter system or another private school system engages that, because the level of support that this community wants to have a school out there, because even though the schools are 10 to 12 miles into town, what they don't tell you is the roads out there aren't quick in access. It's not interstate travel. Some of those students will be up to an hour in the bus one way. So I think this, in summary, this even though we have great schools in Benton County, and that they're with a mass of people coming in, school districts are increasing in growth and size. They're expanding their footprints. This charter school will absolutely be adopted and supported amongst the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, Ms. Wagner.
Okay, if you guys will look at that final legal review, you will notice on number 1 for ALE, I didn't have any legal concerns. It is a fully effectuated waiver. I did ask that they provide additional rationale just because there was not a ton in the application. So if you want to ask those questions when you guys get to deliberations, you'll notice I put the same thing on all of them. Superintendent, I believe Miss Sawyer is going to actually serve as the superintendent. Is that correct, Miss Sawyer? Yes. And she's a fully licensed principal. So she just has so it's fully effectuated for all the waiver for superintendent. I had no legal concerns there. Board of directors, no legal concerns. For 4, 5, and 6, they kind of all go together. For curriculum, visual arts, music, and fine arts, they are going to offer those pieces, just we're not aware if they could get someone who was licensed in that area, which is why they have the teacher licensure waiver. So that teacher licensure waiver is actually narrowed specifically to visual arts, music, and fine arts, a licensed teacher in those areas, library media specialist, and then physical education. They are not going to have unlicensed teachers in their core areas. They've narrowed their teacher licensure waiver to reflect that. So I have no legal concerns about any of that. And they will have a media center, just don't have the library media specialist, unless of course they can find someone to hire, because I believe the intention is to hire if they can find someone, because it's hire, not contract, right? You're gonna hire somebody.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. And then you will see number 7, the teacher excellence and support system, the test system. They fully effectuated this waiver, and they did narrow it to a year. This is not a commonly granted waiver, so that is something to consider going forward. I only have one legal concern. I wanted to ask the applicant to tell you guys what the status of their 501c3 determination is. They must have that in place before students arrive and they begin providing services. So I will let them speak to that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just real quick, the 501c3 is in process. We're waiting on the IRS, so we are, and they don't have anybody in the office. I don't know if y'all know that, but if you try to call, nobody answers the phone. So, yeah, we are working on that.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Now, any questions for me, or we have?
We will in just a minute.
Okay, all right.
And I did want to find out, is APSRC, are you supporting this application?
We have worked with them to provide technical assistance. The application stands on its own merits, but we have worked with them to provide technical assistance, and it is where it is. We offer you a chance to review it. We think they have a good concept, but obviously you'll have to look into the details. That's where you think it stands.
Thank you. All right. Start with Dr. Murray.
Good morning, and thank you for your presentation. I appreciate you guys coming in and kind of walking us through your anticipated plan for implementation of your charter school. I do have a couple of questions. During your presentation, and I hate to have you to kind of walk through a great deal of additional details, but I'm still trying to get a sense of your intended mission of your charter. So I heard teams, and then I heard there's an ag focus, and so I just kind of get a sense of what will be your mission for your charter.
Yeah, well, our published mission, we want to empower students to become those critical, creative thinkers. We want them to be lifelong learners. We want them to be purposeful. We want them to become leaders and, really just productive members of the community. And agriculture and economics is a growing field. And so we have, beyond high school, those things are growing fields. And so in that area, we have 5 communities that are agricultural in that area. And we want to bring that piece along with the traditional curriculum and intertwine them so that students have real-world relevant learning experiences.
So then my next question, when I was looking at your, kind of your explanation
Mhm.
of the amount of individuals that attended your interest meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and you stated that you had 26, and that was, it sounded like it was combined of interested parties and then media as well. And you have a desired enrollment of now 150.
Mm-hmm.
So can you kind of walk us through a little bit how you feel like you'll be able to pull up to that number? If we anticipate some of the students that are going to Garfield will go ahead and go to the school that is
Mhm.
designated for them, how do you feel like you're going to get to that 150?
Well, we will implement a pretty heavy campaign for recruitment through advertisement. We have, that meeting was on a Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, and it was hard. You know, it's hard for families that are driving in from Rogers. The traffic is, you know, kind of like Little Rock. And so getting off of work, we just thought that the turnout was maybe lower than what we thought it would be, just based on schedules and people, you know, being able to get there. We have had a lot of interest outside of that meeting. And I actually live in Avoca, and so I've been talking, you know, to neighbors and other folks. And so we will have an active recruiting campaign where we will, you know, target and go out and find those students. We know that the interest is there. We know the interest is there.
So my next question gets to, so looking through the waivers that were presented today and then looking through the packet that you
Mhm.
submitted, I didn't see a waiver for career technical education. And in your response, you indicate that you're going to embed
Mhm.
CTE throughout your curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
But there are, so it sounds like that you're gonna have the agriculture focus, which you feel like that's gonna be the embedding piece. But there's also some other courses, especially because of the age range you're looking at up through our middle school, that we have an expectation that are offered to students. And I didn't see that mentioned in your application. So can you speak a little bit more about what your plan is for career technical education for your students, beyond the farm to table piece, but what are some of those other pieces that you anticipate?
Well, we do anticipate hiring and following the standards for CTE. We want to embed all of the technical education. I think the big piece that sticks out to me as a teacher now is that we're testing students on devices, but we're not teaching them to type until 4th or 5th grade. So we want to start that very early with some keyboarding. And as we move through, we do intend to hire those, you know, those people to teach those CTE courses. We don't want to seek a waiver in that. We want to add value to the education that they're already getting. We don't want to take, you know, a lot of things away that we know that they can get, you know, that they would get in town. We don't want that. We want to add value. So we plan to fully adhere to those CTE standards. And we'll be coming along with career. You know, there's a lot of people in our community that we can bring in, you know, to talk about career choices. And there are some grants for pathways programs that we can have in the summertime, you know, that will also bring people in to, you know, to teach about careers and those kinds of things.
I do have addition, but I'll let others get started and then you can come back to me.
Ms. Saraceni?
Thank you for your presentation today, and especially the experience you're bringing here as educators. I just have some questions. It looks like when Dr. Wright McMurray was asking you about the budget, you anticipate 150, but what, do you have anything in place if you do not have 150? Do you have, in case that you do not have 150, what structures do you have in place if there is a deficit and you can't, you don't have, your ending balance is more negative than what it shows? And anticipation, you said you had changed the first 200 down to 150, but do you expect the 250 in 25, 26?
We expect that we would be able to add a pre-K. There is no pre-K in that area, so I don't think that it's going to be hard to get those 20 kids, maybe more. And in sixth grade, we feel like we'll keep our fifth graders, you know, and they'll move into sixth grade, and we may even gain some more. There are several kids right now that are choice traveling over to Pea Ridge, and our facility is directly across the street from where those kids are being picked up for school. So we know that we anticipate that some of those students will come back. We really would just combine grade levels where we needed to. We have a multi-age philosophy anyway, and we feel like there's plenty of research that backs that up for social emotional learning, and so I think what we would do we would just, you know, wherever the shortfall was, we may have a K1 classroom, we may have a 1-2 classroom, but that's where we would have to, you know, take the budget, is we would have to move a teacher.
In your pre-K, are you looking at maybe an ABC program and going after those funds as you add that?
We will, and that was part of the reason that we didn't add it in the beginning. We know that pre-K has been moved to DESE, and we know that all of the rules are not written, and so we didn't want to spend a lot of money, because pre-Ks, you know, they have a lot of rules, and we didn't know what would change, and so that's the only reason that we didn't start pre-K in the first year, was just because we knew those rules were changing and we would need to see what those were before we could.
So you are looking at seeking funding through ABC once you start that, which would bring in more
absolutely.
for the budget.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm just asking
Yeah.
details so
No,
that we can get the whole picture.
Yes, no, we are aware of ABC grants, and we know, but again, we just.
Okay, I just have a couple of more questions. Thank you for narrowing your licensure, and knowing and putting in there that you want them to be AQT. I thank you, I appreciate that. Also, looking at your test evaluation that it's going to expire, I just want you to be aware of merit pay without a current evaluation on our test system. Your teachers will not be eligible.
Right.
So I just caution you when you are asking for that waiver.
Well, we asked for that waiver because we are going to be a very small staff, and the PLC process is very, very big on that trust and that, you know, those relationships. And we just felt like if we could waive it for 1 year, it would give, and we're a brand new curriculum, and, you know, all of that, we would be able to really form that bond that we need to form to be the team we need to be. However, we would want to take that to staff and say, this is what we've asked for. They've granted it. But we feel like, you know, it's your pay, so we need to ask you. So that may actually be something we would come back and ask for an amendment to reinstate that. We just want to have the option to build that, you know, in the spirit of the PLC, to really build that relationship and that program.
Thank you. I just wanted you to be aware of that.
Yeah, we're aware. Yes,
I'm writing those rules.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a hot topic.
Yes, it is. Also, one other thing, you said that you had already collected around $54,000 in pledges already. Is that within the budget you gave us today, or is that not put in there?
No, those were just collected in the last week, and we believe that with our reimbursement for our food funding and just that show of support, we are actually a couple $1,000 in the black, so.
Well, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't
Right.
reflected in what you gave this morning.
Oh, no, ma'am,
Okay.
that's just calling a few people and saying, hey, can you just pledge your support?
Okay, thank you. I may ask a few later.
Okay,
I just want to build on one of Ms. Saraceni's questions and ask, I assume that you're still going to do evaluations, you're just not going to do them in the test system?
right, we will, because I will be in classrooms every day, all day. I actually had a friend say to me, don't put a desk in your office. The first year, just don't even put a desk in your office. And that way you won't go in there and sit down. You'll have to find a place, and that place will be in a classroom. And so we just felt like that would be a really helpful piece. And our teachers may say, oh no, evaluate us, we want the money. But we want to, we wanted to have it just in case, because we do feel like the spirit of the PLC process is that building relationships and that trust among your, educational community. And because we're going to be so small, and because we're developing, curriculum kind of as we go, we want them to be able to freely, without, concern of repercussions, to be able to express their thoughts, so.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Baldwin?
Thank you. The decision by Rogers to close the school, can you walk us through your knowledge of why they did that? It seems, that the school is doing well, a B-rated school. I guess I'm wondering how many students are currently attending the school, and just why do you think they did this?
Well, what they have said is for the financial liability. I don't know, Mayor Blackburn, you may be able to speak better to that. You were in all of those meetings.
Gary Blackburn. I've been mayor of Garfield for 9 years, moved there in 1980. Served on the city council for 2 years before becoming mayor. All my kids went to that campus that you're asking about. I was night custodian there after I retired for the Postal Service for a while. I'm really involved in what goes on in those buildings. Bear me a minute. 1997, 3 of us in town borrowed $150,000 to reconstruct the Dorothy Ross building, which houses the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders right now. And we didn't have to make a payment on the note. It was all paid by the community in donations. We started with a caved-in building and built it during the summer. Over the years, the public schools, Rogers Public Schools maintenance people really haven't kept the historic building in the condition that it needs to be in. And because the state senate passed some rules, I believe in 2019, that ADA is more important, the Rogers school system didn't deem it a good investment to take that historic facility to where it would comply with all the ADA requirements. So at the end of the day, it was a money decision. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir, thank you. And my next question was going to be, is there a chance that in the future you all might be able to acquire that building and use it for your school? But it sounds like there's going to be a lot of cost to rehab the building for ADA.
I'm in conversations with them almost daily. The superintendent lives in Garfield. He has to drive by my office every day. I go out to his house and we talk about these very issues. I talked to Raymond Burns yesterday, president of the Chamber of Commerce, who they have a stake in one of the properties there on the campus. And yes, they do want the community to end up with that facility. And they're going to work with us, and we're going to work with them, because we're turning out 5th graders that are quality students when they go to Rogers. Thank you.
So it looks like you have a deal with the church
Yes.
use their facility at $1 a year. Very nice for the church to do that.
Absolutely.
Describe for us their facilities. I mean, you're saying you're gonna have 150 students today. Walk through the rooms, the way the church will be configured for the school. Does it have a cafeteria? I mean, it sounds like it has a kitchen, but just walk us through what that looks like operationally when you start.
Okay. It does have plenty of classrooms. We have plenty of space for intervention, people to do interventions. We have classrooms large enough to handle the population. They have, I think the biggest thrill for me as we walked through was they have their old fellowship hall, which has a fully functioning kitchen in it, which when we started talking about preparing and preserving our food, we were like, woo, an extra kitchen, because we know we can't really use the commercial kitchen because of the rules of, mixing and all that. But so we were super excited to see that. And of course it comes with a very, large space where we could hold art classes and music classes, and it could really be a great flex space for our indoor labs that we want to have. The cafeteria, there is a very large cafeteria, can seat our students without any problem. There is a commercial kitchen in that building also. The cafeteria, they have some portable basketball goals that you can move the tables out of the way and bring those in, and it becomes a gym. There's a stage in that building, and there's also a recreation room in that building where our older students, can go and play ping pong and pool and things like that if we had indoor recess, And then outside they have a playground, they have a volleyball court, and they have a large pavilion that is already has the picnic tables in it that we would need to have an outdoor classroom or, any kinds of, or outdoor labs. It's all there. So as the farther we went into that campus, actually, the more excited I got. I was like, this will be great for this, and this will be great for this. And they're letting us use their furniture. We won't have to buy a lot of furniture. We may have to supplement some, but there won't be a lot of that is needed. And they also have TV screens in every classroom that we can use to plug our document cameras in and, work that way. And they also have whiteboards already. They're not as large as probably as what we need, but we would start and we could add another 5 foot, in each one. So
It sounds like you can walk in and begin to operate substantially with what.
we can. Yes, we have to cover a couple of pictures of some crosses, and other than that, we are good to go. Yes, yes. The only religious symbols I saw actually in the building where they have their little logo that you see on their classroom placards outside that, say like first grade, and we were told we could just cover those up. Not a problem, so.
The lease, describe the lease, is it a 1-year lease or long-term
I
lease?
believe that our agreement is for 2 years. Right, Mayor? Yes. Yes, it is, they have signed on for at least 2 years.
Okay.
Yes, it's very important to them. And I want to direct you, I'm sorry, I forgot, we do have a sample of our curriculum in the back of your packets, and it goes all the way through 8th grade. So all of our, everything's in there. Sorry about that. I forgot we stuck that in there.
So, kind of coming back to the number of students, the 150 that you have now,
Mm-hmm.
and, the first year it's always a question mark about what will actually happen.
Right.
How many students currently go to this school?
Last year there were 104 in the school. This year there are 94 right now, and
I
so
think
far,
it would probably be smart to do a plan A, plan B, and plan C
Mm-hmm.
with just assume a different number of students, and maybe have 150, 125, 100, or some increment down, and that way you can see what the financial position would look like going back to Ms. Saraceni's comment about your deficit in the first year. And I actually appreciate the fact you showed the deficit, because a lot of people would have just kind of made stuff up to make that go away.
Yeah,
And so I think it's a good thing that you all just acknowledge that. I think you should plan for, different options, because we really don't know what the future holds. It does sound like you've got some good ability to raise money from educationally focused foundations, and so that would probably help if that does come about. And you might put that in some of your Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C. I just have my CPA hat on right now.
yeah. Well, we are
That's how we
very fortunate to be in that part of the state where we have, many large corporations that we feel like we can tap into, and they are all very supportive, of education.
I think that as you do your scenarios, I'm looking at the CFO now, it might be good to figure out what the break even is for number of students, and to see how long it will take you to get to that break even. Have you talked to any school staff, and will the staff at the school now, talk to us about how many of those will stay with the charter as opposed to go to the Rogers school?
Well, so at the end of last year, Rogers did move the current staff into town, so they have a new staff out there. But I can tell you, I've worked in this school, and we have talked to those teachers, and I believe they'll all come back. The ones that were there last year, they already have long-standing relationships. We have one teacher that's been in that school for 30 years. He's teaching grandkids of people he taught, and he wants to come back, and several of these teachers have come to these meetings, or they've reached out to me and said, hey, will I be able to come back? And we don't want to get rid of the relationships, right? We absolutely want them to come back. So
I live in West Fork, so I understand
yeah.
small town schools.
Okay.
And the importance of small town community. So I kind of thought that, but I wanted to.
Yes, yeah. Oh, if the ones that are there now, they may say, no, we want to stay too. And
So my final question is, in looking at your staff that's in your budget, it looks like a lot of front office folks, what I call front office folks, it's teachers, it's people that will be face to face with students, and you all know that there's a big back office that supports all that, and it's technology, it's accounting, it's HR, it's technical stuff that happens, and I don't see a lot of employees for that. So talk through how you're going to do that, and maybe I'd be interested in knowing who's going to handle your computer systems when the thing crashes, who pulls it back up, who's going to do your monthly financials, your books, your accounting support. I know your board, it looks like they're going to be very hands-on, but they can't function in that way as a board in the details of the work. So walk us through how you're going to handle all of that.
well, do you want to address that? How we're going to handle that? Because you kind of have that.
We have, what we've done is, well, you've got the office manager. We've talked to people, okay? And we have some specific folks in mind that we want to hire. People that have experience in those areas. The person that will be the front office registrar, bookkeeper. Joy, what was her experience? You know her.
Yes, our bookkeeper is I'm recruiting her away from the district that I serve now. She has served in that district in the office for over 20 years. So she has all of that experience in the bookkeeping and she has all of that experience. So AppScan, eSchool, all the things, so.
Yeah. And as far as someone to handle computer issues and things like that.
I guess, again, that's me.
That's you.
So my son is a network security engineer for a large corporation in our area, and he is willing to donate his time for the first year or two to make sure that our security and everything is in place. It will be his off time, but he said, I got you, I've got your security, I've got your, that's what he does, is information security, so.
The larger numbers in this new budget, if you'll notice, are targeted to technology, because we knew that that would be a large expense going in.
And I think a lot of times, charter programs will basically outsource that to, a company that does that for schools or does
Right.
that for people.
And that may be an option for us, so that we've got somebody on a day-to-day basis
I would just
that can
encourage you
handle
all
that.
to think through that too. I know you've got
Yeah,
time
we-
before you have to pull those triggers, but
We really were trying to put our community members to work because we know that first year is gonna be tough. And so we're really, we're contacting, every time we turn around in Garfield, we find somebody else that has some expertise that we need, that are willing to help.
Mhm.
So our, Jenny is also an architect, so she's willing to help us out. Our mayor has also built, he built the Ross building, so, we're tapping into all of those resources because this community is very committed. And every time we turn around, we say, we need this, and somebody says, I said, hey, I need a web designer, and I had somebody come up to me after the meeting, she said, I'm a web designer, I'll do it.
I'll do
I
that
got you.
for
I got-
free.
I got your social media, I got your web design, so every time, like I said, it's a small community, but there's a lot of people there that are.
There's a lot of
willing to help.
talent there.
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Ms. Newton?
I gathered from Mr. Baldwin's statement that the campus, the school would be on the campus of the church.
Yes.
And my concern is maybe there are some people that are not comfortable coming on the campus. You mentioned covering crosses. I don't know if that is sufficient in my mind
Right.
in terms of that, maybe a Methodist that not like the Baptist or whatever, and have an issue attending. I think your concept is good. And also, I want to speak to the ag-ride focus and post-secondary education. I didn't hear anything that the segue to college would be there as well as agriculture, because everybody's not going to stay at home on the farm. And how do you address their interests if it's not agriculture? And again, the building, I'll stop right there.
Well, I feel like, so we're going through we're starting out to build through 8th grade. So right now, our students would be going into Rogers or Pea Ridge for their high school, education. Well, through 8th grade, yeah. And so we will be, we're very interest focused. I've taught gifted and talented education for many years, and I'm very much into those interest inventories and, things like that. And I feel like just in all of my experience, economics and agriculture can be woven into any interest that they may not want to go out and get their hands dirty, but there's a whole business side, of agriculture that they may want to tap into. And we will just, we're educators, we're very much into individual, learning plans and student success plans. And so those things will just be, I hate to say we'll deal with them as they come up, but those are the things that we would, that would become like, okay, well, this student is really into math or really into history, how can we make what we're doing work, with that?
Well, I think it doesn't show to me a balance for the students that are not interested in math as it relates to agriculture or any other thing that doesn't, that it may relate, you can tie almost anything to it, but there may be some students that is not their focus, but it seems to be the focus of the school, and it's not problematic, but it's just those that come with the intent to further their education, and it may be in arts and whatever. But that's a concern of mine. Again, the campus and
Yeah,
whether or not it's an open charter, and whether everyone feels comfortable coming into a building that's attached to a church at, you know, whether you're a believer or non-believer. That may be an issue, or something that I'm pondering. It will be probably identified as First Baptist Church Charter in some minds.
Yes.
Yeah, and like I say, no offense to, or no connection to any belief or anything, but that is,
Right.
yeah.
Right, and we do understand that, and we are aware that we may lose some students because of that going into that charter. As the mayor said, we would love to have the building. We just, right now, because of some due diligence that we're doing, that's not going to be feasible initially. And the work that needs to be done to the building would need to be done probably without the students there. So if we were to acquire the building, we are looking at 1 year. And we're aware that there are belief systems, and we are Garfield's a very conservative community. But we do realize that we may lose some students that first year. I think that I feel like when we get to that, once kids have been there a year, and people are talking and they realize that's not what we're doing.
I think I'd be more comfortable if it invited all, that you wouldn't have to choose leave. The whole point is keeping people in Garfield.
Right.
And if you wouldn't have to leave to go to Rogers, to be able to get the, focus on something other than agriculture.
Yes.
So that, and being a public charter,
Mhm.
I think it, should open itself to all aspects of careers, with a focus on agriculture certainly,
Mhm.
but, not completely.
Right, and I think that comes as we grow, and especially as we get into those 6th, 7th, and 8th grade years where they really are starting to get into the careers and, and those kinds of things. I think those are the conversations that we have with parents and students and say, hey, because we want to grow, we don't want to just, be stagnant. And we want our kids to grow. That's very important, and I think individual student success plans are important. And I sit down with parents every year at the beginning of the year, and with kids every year at the beginning of the year, and say, what are you interested, what are you focused, what do you want to get out of my class? And I feel like that's when you're in a small district or in a small school like we will be, I feel like that's going to be, more doable. And I think we're going to be able to listen to our community and provide our community what it needs. And Mr. Walters.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, members of the panel, Trip Walter, Staff Attorney, Arkansas Public School Resource Center. Ms. Newton, I just wanted to follow up on your concerns and comments about the church facility. Just as a point of reference, it has not been all that uncommon over the years for especially startup open enrollments to utilize church facilities. We have several examples in the past that this panel has approved, and they've utilized those facilities. Currently, the Arkansas Military and First Responders Academy, which is literally just opened, which you recently approved, is operating in a former church facility. So,
I think what my concern is that school that you mentioned has other schools around, but what if it's the only choice in Garfield? That's my point about it. So I don't have a problem with the church. I don't have a problem, but I'm concerned about those folks that would have another option or would choose not to do it because they don't have an option.
I can speak to that. Rogers schools will still have a bus route. It is still part of their school district, so they would still provide a bus route for any student that that wanted to go into Rogers, and certainly parents could take their kids and drop them off there. And Pea Ridge is it's an interesting little setup but Pea Ridge is almost closer to Garfield than Rogers, and there is a school bus that picks up right across the street from our church building every day for kids that are school of choice. But there's about 20 students, K-12, Mayor.
Period started Monday, and actually had 2 school buses, and there was 20 to 25 kids got off those buses from Period. So yeah, that's been going on for the last 5 years. That's a designated pickup spot for the Period schools.
So they do have, there are other options if they choose that they don't want to be in the building. And we know that this is a temporary, this is a temporary building, 1 to 2 years, really, until we want to secure the old building. It's the longest running elementary school in the state of Arkansas, and we really would like to secure that building as soon as possible, so.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And I just have a couple of questions before we go back down to you. Is that
And
okay?
then, Mr. Davis is online also.
Oh, he is? Okay, all right. Mr. Davis?
Yes, I'm here.
Do you have
Can
any-
everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so I do have a number of questions. Thank you for the presentation and thank you for the thoughtfulness. As a matter of fact, it's, most of my questions don't come from the place of you not giving the type of responses necessary and needed, but really is more around some budgetary concerns and execution on kind of what you put on paper. So there are some questions here, and I'm going to unfortunately jump around a little bit, but I do kind of want to dig into them. From, I just want to be clear in regards to the 501c3. There is an understanding that that does not exist at the current moment and will need to be established beforehand before you can move forward.
Yes, we have our EIN number from the state. We are just working on the IRS side of that.
Yeah.
And let me just address that, if I may, Scott Smith with APSRC. It is common practice that charter schools usually are in the process of applying when asking for their charter, and most charters, unless they're tied to an already existing large organization somewhere, especially Arkansas charters, are in the process of applying. Arkansas law is very specific that you don't have to have this 501c3 in place at the time. You just have to apply. It just has to be in place by the time the school doors open. So that is common practice in the charter application process.
Yep. Thank you for that. And I was aware of that as well. I also know, based upon some of the other work that I am doing, that it is taking a ridiculously long time to establish those things. So, hopefully those things will be rectified before we move forward. You sort of talked about the first year, and you talked about the budgetary concerns or what the budgetary expectations are for the first year. Have you done any sort of, I didn't see anything in the application beyond the first year, right? So is there an expectation by the second year that you will, if obviously what I heard earlier, if all the pledges come through and you're able to secure funding, you think you'd be in the black this year. But let's say that doesn't happen. Do you feel good based upon the enrollment and the enrollment projection that you'll be in the black during the second year?
Yes, I know you don't have our packet that we handed out with our additional, with the revisions that we did to the budget. But yes, we do show, while it's not large, but we do show a $58,500 gain in the second year. Sorry, I lost my word.
That's okay. And digging into the budgets for this year a little bit more, you mentioned that potentially there is, you think that you might be able to end up in the black. Is that based upon the budget and the $55,000 worth of pledges or whatever was mentioned there? Will that put you in the black, or will there still need to be some additional funds secured in order to put you in the black the first year?
The additional funding that we anticipate that will take care of part of the shortfall is reimbursement of the food cost, which we anticipate will be about $40,000. We've raised $54,000 in this past week in donor pledges, and if approved, we have folks additionally that are ready to write us a check. So, and that's not taking into account any of the grants that we've applied for or things that, we anticipate other funding streams that we anticipate. So
Yep.
actually, that would put us in the black in the first year by about $2,000, just with the donations and the food reimbursement.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a budget-related
Yes.
question? What is the minimal enrollment that supports that budget? In other words, how many students will you need? And I hear the number fluctuating, it's 90 plus now. But how many do you need to effectuate a positive outcome based on information? And not necessarily anticipation of grants or donations, but actually solid, in the bank or calculated by student enrollment.
I would say that if we have current enrollment from last year of 106 students, that probably 115 to 120 students would be a minimum that we could have before we would have to start not hiring an extra teacher, before we'd have to start combining classes. So about 115, 120 students would be probably a good number.
Chair, could I kind of elaborate on that? So when I'm looking at per student, the 7,771, is that what you will get, or will it be the 7,618? Okay, because that was my concern.
Yeah, okay.
Ken Rich, APSRC. Starting next school year, it'll be $7,771 per student, so that would be the new amount. Just a couple of other comments. The staffing model here can be adjusted. So obviously there's quite a few employees on there. If there are less students that show up on the first day of school or less students that enroll, it's very common for charter schools to change their staffing model between the time they're approved here and when they actually start school, based on the number of students that show up. So they do have some flexibility there. I know you can't actually put any money that's been pledged into this budget as well, but they've addressed that. So there are options. As Mr. Baldwin said, the first year or two for a charter school is always the toughest financially, without a doubt. And usually after that, it flows quite well, based on the number of students, and they get their model in place. But they would have to make some adjustments. Obviously, we provided a little bit of technical assistance on this. You don't want to have a negative first year budget proposed. I get that, but they had a lot of things happening in the last couple of weeks. So that's why you see that.
Thank you.
Can you clarify one more question for me, Ken? Usually it's based on third quarter, what you end up getting. So when would they physically get this money?
Yeah, so for a charter school, they have current year funding in year one. So they'll put a projection in based on their enrollment projections, July 1st of next year. They'll be funded on that number until the end of the first quarter. Once the first quarter is complete, that will be trued up and adjusted, and they'll continue to do that throughout the year after the second, third quarter of the year. Then the following year, funding will be based on three-quarter average from the previous year. Yep.
Thank you. That's clears that up, because I kept thinking, how does that work?
Mr. Davis?
I'm sorry, if I may also, Scott Smith, I just want to mention this, I think everyone knows about it, but there are charter grant opportunities that's not built into the budget. Two possibilities that often exist out there. One, there's a possibility of Walton startup grant dollars. I think that roughly would be approximately in the amount of $450,000 if they could be approved. And then we have a federal charter startup grant program called the CSP grant, which, if they qualify, can be up to the amount of $1.25 million, but that requires 60% free and reduced population to get to that full amount. Otherwise, it's $650,000. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, there are still grant opportunities available in that area. And we are obligated to get those funds pushed out. So I just want to make sure that you can't bank that, that's not built into the budget, but those opportunities may exist out there.
Scott, how much did you say on that again?
On which one?
On the federal?
On the federal, if there's 60% or more free and reduced population, it can be up to 1.25 million. Or if that's not there, then it's usually half of that, so 650,000. That is a reimbursement grant, okay? So that anticipates a cash flow that will allow that to spend. And sometimes we have worked with other foundations or folks to make sure there's a cash flow to help those dollars flow in some form or fashion. And there's limits on that reimbursement grant on how the dollars can be used. So that's not as open as maybe other startup grants are in some ways. There's limits on where those dollars can, but just wanted to make sure you understand those potentials as well.
Mr. Smith, before you leave, I have a question. These are funds that are anticipated, and certainly it could be some variables to come up. So they may or may not be funded. So that's a concern that I have, is that, and then the number of free and reduced lunch, if you build your budget on that. So I don't know if the budget was built anticipating having met the 60%.
No, I think the budget you see was not built on those dollars at all. So I just want to let you know that those possibilities exist. With regards to the CSP funds, I think it's a fair statement to say that we are obligated to get those dollars out and are trying to make sure that there are charters that are approved to move those dollars out to the extent they qualify. And so I think those dollars are out there looking to be placed someplace going forward.
But does your application, and I think this maybe you can answer, does it reflect 60% or over? That's a substantial amount of money.
Since they did not build it into the budget, we didn't reflect anything on that.
Okay.
So we just gave you a bare bones budget without any of that. I just want you to be aware and just making you aware. Okay.
Thank you.
I can speak to, Garfield has always fallen in the 68 to about 72% free reduced lunch. I believe the last time, the My Info is about 3 years behind, 2 or 3 years behind, I believe. They were at 69.2%, I believe, free reduced lunch. So we definitely fall in that. And that's a historical, when I taught there, it was that, so.
I should just mention that does not apply to virtual charter schools. So that grant would not, so if they're running a virtual program or something like that, there's a limitation as well, but just wanted you to be aware of that.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Davis?
Yeah, just a couple more questions from me, because there's some things that are coming to clarity. And first of all, Ms. Newton, I just want to just point out that I don't even know if we can go as far as to say certain grants are anticipated, right? I think that there's an opportunity to apply, and then what happens, happens. So I don't even want to lean into the thinking that certain things will or anticipated to happen kind of moving forward. I think we can all speak to the qualifications and those types of things that will allow them to apply, but the idea of anticipating funds, I think, is something else. I did want to talk about in the application, I think in regards to the board book on page 64, it kind of talks about staffing, and I'm happy the comment was made around staffing adjustments. So I'm interested from a staff perspective. It appears that when I started to calculate the number of potential full-time staff, you're somewhere around 15, 16, 17 people. Is that correct? I'm just trying to wrap my head around, from a implementation standpoint, because once again, you talked about the GT program. Obviously, when we start talking about special ed students, there's a number of things that are in your application that you have said that you will deliver on, although you're starting very small. And so I'm just wondering, where you think you might land with some of this. Traditionally, just quickly, I think what we've seen, particularly in small public charter spaces, we've seen schools become very focused on a few things that they feel they can execute well, and families are drawn to it, versus a broader scale around ensuring that they're meeting all the needs, demands, expectations, so forth of the entire community, that may then stretch them from a staffing and a recruitment standpoint. So I just want to be clear on how you plan on executing from a staff perspective on all those things. People wearing multiple hats, is that the expectation?
Yeah, so the budget you're looking at has a maintenance person. We do not need that maintenance person anymore because we have the church facility, so that person has been removed from the new budget. We do have people serving in multiple areas. For example, our teams coordinator will also be our art teacher, and she is also an interventionist. So she will be working in those 3 jobs. I know that sounds like a lot, but we've talked to her, and she's willing to put in the extra time and the extra effort to get this school going. I'm Joy, by the way. I will be the director. I will also I am GT certified. I've taught GT for about 17 years, so I will be the GT specialist on staff, and I'm also willing to commit my time after hours to make sure that all of that happens. We are working with the GT department on the enrichment, and because we think we're going to be able to do that in a very creative, innovative way, and our students will receive their 150 minutes each week of specific GT services. So yes, we do plan to utilize people in more than one area.
Thank you for that. Something that was mentioned a few moments ago was the idea of a bookkeeper as well. And I may once again not have the right budget in front of me, but the one that's in the board book doesn't mention a bookkeeper listed. And so I'm just wondering is that an additional line item that will be added, and what does the salary look like in regards to the bookkeeper? Or is that one of these positions someone will be doing double duty in that sense?
No, sir, you're right. We're just noticing that we didn't have that person in there ourselves. That, however, we do know that that salary will be $30,000. Oh, sorry, we do have it under fiscal services. We have that salary at $25,000. It's under fiscal services. Okay.
One more thing to add on that, Ken Rich, APSRC. APSRC does provide some back office bookkeeping services for startup charters, so we have not talked to them directly about that at this point, but we could talk to them about providing that service.
Fantastic. The other thing I noticed in the application, and I just want to make sure that this is correct, that there will be some ADA compliance issues with the building. I think there was a mention of either some ramps or some wheelchair access. Is that still the case?
Well, the church, we have switched facilities.
Okay.
Yes, and so we are now going, we have a lease for $1 a month from a church in Garfield, and it is completely ADA compliant. So we no longer have that issue.
Fantastic. I don't have any additional questions for now. Thank you so much for answering my questions.
Absolutely.
And then I have just a couple of questions, and then we'll go right down to Dr. Wright McMurray.
Okay.
So I was looking at your goals, and seeing as you have a lot of the same students, or are anticipating a lot of the same students, what data did you look at to establish your goals?
We looked at the MyInfo data that's online to establish those goals. Garfield is right now a high-performing school. They are rated at a grade of B, and I think that it's because they're small and because those teachers are in there and have those relationships that Garfield does have that great support for their students, and so that's where our goals are based from. And also just talking to teachers. Like I said, I used to work there, so I have friends that are there, and I've talked to them and said, hey, where are your kids right now? Like, what do we need to do right now? So I do have that little inside there that I've been able to kind of communicate with some of the educators.
Thank you. The other question that I have is around your board structure. It mentions that employees will be part of the board. Is that correct?
No, what we did was when we wrote that, we tried to just attach like a qualification. So for example, Dr. Kennan is the CEO. She is an education consultant. We're not gonna pay her to do that. She's gonna do that for us for free, so. And yes, so.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
so we're not gonna have, that won't be an issue.
Dr. Wright McMurray?
So I guess a lot of my remaining questions kind of all fall under like one umbrella of sustainability. And, cause I understand as you're starting the charter, there are a lot of, people that are promising that they'll be engaged. You have gotten some of the, former teachers to say they'll come back. There's some that, like, even some, you guys are saying, well, we'll be willing to serve 2 and 3 and sounds like in some cases 4 roles. But just how sustainable is that going to be going forward? You know, what plan do you have in place to be in a position to where you don't have to stretch so many of the people so thin? You don't have to be dependent upon people that are saying today they'll be willing to come back, but you know, they may decide, you know, I'm great where I am. I just want to stay in the school district that I've been reassigned to. Just looking at the number of students that you would need to be able to sustain your plan, do we anticipate that's going to be a continual number of students that we'll be able to see each year and grow over, or do we anticipate that eventually we're going to hit a point to where we're going to just kind of have a stall and not be able to continue to enroll the number of students that it's going to take to be able to get to that point? And I will say, I'm just a kind of, just me personally, I'm just the kind of person, I like to be able to sit with some things, and that's why I know the charter team knows that I usually ask for all applications well in advance so that I can go through and make all my notes. So it is throwing me a bit that I got the budget this morning.
Sorry.
And I'm trying to work through it and understand it,
Right.
Because there's like a lot of remaining pieces that are still there that I'm just trying to get my mind wrapped around and be able to understand how this is going to be financially supported. Because I'm looking at, and I'm sorry to keep, but I say this all kind of falls within that umbrella of how you're going to sustain this, because like as one of your under purchase services, you indicate there's going to be a third-party service provider that's going to assist you with that. Who is that third-party service provider? What is their track record for being able to provide this support and resource? Will they be able to be someone that's going to continue through the process, or are they just doing it because you're starting? So those are just some questions that I still have, is just once we get past this first initial year, all the people that have, you know, made personal commitments, even the finances, there's like a lot of pledges of what people will be able to contribute. But we know in some cases people will say on the front end, oh yeah, I'm gonna give you, I mean, you know, we have kids that, you know, sell cookies. Yeah, I'm gonna buy 10 boxes, and you go back around to them and they only wanna buy 1, or they don't buy any. So, you know, how do we get comfort in the fact that your plan is gonna be sustainable past this first year of implementation?
Well, I think that one of the things that I will say is that this area is growing, and it's growing fast. Rogers, the city of Rogers is landlocked, and so this is now how they have to come. There are 175 homes that have been approved to be built in Avoca right now. I've talked to some of their city council members. They are, you know, it's just grow. I know there's building going on in Garfield. So it is a growing area, and I just feel like that will help us sustain. I feel like people are looking for, these charter opportunities to come. And I feel like we are going to have, we will always have community support, and I know you don't live in Garfield, so you don't know that. But I have, if I can just give a quick personal, we had a teacher when I worked there that was diagnosed with cancer, and so we decided as a fundraiser we'd sell hot dogs and chips in the car rider line as people left. We had about 150 students at that time, and we raised $6,000 that day selling, for her family. This community is a special place, and they want their kids educated there, and I think Senator Bryant spoke to that earlier also. So I do think that this is a sustainable charter. I wouldn't be involved with it, if I wasn't. I've got 10 or 15 more years before I retire, and this will be my job. And so I think that as we grow, we will lessen the number of teachers that are doing multiple things, because I know I'm very well aware of what burnout looks like and feels like, and we want to protect that. And if we see it's not working, we will monitor and adjust. But I feel like as we add the grade levels and we gain more students, we will be in a better, place financially to untie some of those. We will probably not always need a teams coordinator. That's a job that we need initially, probably for the first 3 or 4 years, to really get everybody on board and get our our curriculum and built, and all those kinds of things. And then I think eventually that job will go away, and and we'll have those field experiences and things like that in place. So I feel like we have a really good grasp. The district that I work in now is very proud of the fact that they work on the efficiency model, and so I know what that looks like, and I know how we, how you have to pare down. Some years you have to pare down, some years you can do a little more, and we will just be very conservative in our decisions. Our CFO, Mr. Neighbors, is a conservative minded, and I think that we will be very conservative in how we spend our monies.
Do you mind if I speak briefly to the nature of our community and them being willing to step out and make sure that we go the long haul? Garfield has the largest volunteer fire and ambulance department in Benton County. Been in existence for 25 years now. NEBCO, Northeast Benton County Volunteer Fire, have like 8 fire stations that they sustain with volunteers and fundraisers and contributions. And then there's God's Pantry that's right across the street from it that serves a really diverse population. We give them free food, clothes, all kinds of things. There's a Lost Bridge Village is a retirement community that they have to go through Garfield to go anywhere, and they have Garfield addresses. And these people love to support the school. My wife worked down at the school for 24 years, and she said they had so many volunteers coming from Lost Bridge Village that they'd have to schedule them. They couldn't let them all come when they wanted to come. So the community will reach out. As soon as we have that charter in our hand, the floodgates will open up, and it'll be for the long haul. It won't be just for 2 years.
Would you mind stating your name for the court reporter?
Gary Blackburn, Garfield.
So to one of my questions, the third-party service provider, under purchase services, who do you anticipate that being to assist the, I imagine the CFO with financial services?
We will seek that person out. We don't have that person, on board right this moment. I have talked to a couple of CPAs that are friends of mine that have said, yes, we are willing to help. Again, it just, you just put the word out. But I do have some friends that have said, oh, we wanna be involved with this. We're excited about it. So I don't think that, but we haven't, hired somebody or made the decision as to who that person would be.
So I think in earlier comments from, so is APRC, are they assisting with that? I'm trying to figure out, because I know that they indicated that they do provide technical assistance in the area. Is that a commitment from them to assist with that? I'm just trying to get my sense around who's gonna be in that role.
Ken Rich, APSRC. Typically, we do try to help any new charter get started in the first year with back office support. We have not had that conversation with them yet, but we do provide that type of service. So we can do that.
So you said you haven't had that conversation?
No, not for providing services, no, but we can provide that service.
Can what back office support, kind of break that down for us, what that means?
Well, it's basically full service, so be all payroll, accounts payable, anything in e-finance. The schools use the e-finance software in the state for all their reporting, all their bookkeeping. So we have staff that provides the entire package, or sometimes we split that up and do a portion of the package. So they may have somebody on staff that can handle some of the duties, and then we provide the duties that they can't handle. So we have a team that does that, and we do that for several charters and traditional districts in the state.
So if you did all that, then that would help us with some of our back office concerns.
Yes, sir.
And I know that's not our decision, that's y'all's.
Yep.
But is that an additional cost that is not accounted for in the budget?
There is a fee, and they do have that $25,000 or $30,000 line item in the budget. So I wouldn't make a statement today on the record as far as what the fee will be, but yes, we will work with the first year charter.
Any other questions from the panel?
If I could answer your question a little more fully about the DCTE standards, in your packet, in the curriculum for 6th through 8th grade.
The new packet or the old packet?
The new packet. Okay. We've included the curriculum selections that we are looking at, and have looked at the standards in terms of we will be embedding many of those technology standards early, but we also do know that those need to be some standalone classes that we have in coding and career planning and those kinds of things. So I wanted to assure you that we've thought about it, and that we know that we've got to offer some, as we go forward and grow, we'll have to offer some standalone classes. And Ms. Newton, to your concern also about curriculum and our focus on agriculture. While agriculture and economics will be a hallmark of the school, we also realize the importance of our traditional curriculum, basic skills, making sure that the students have everything that they would have in a public school in terms of their learning. And then going forward, adjusting and focusing and adding to, if we need to, those interests of students that we see. If we see a big population of students that are inclined towards the arts, then those are conversations we need to have about how can we provide some additional curricular offerings in those areas. So they'll still be getting the good basic skills, the things that they need, that traditional curriculum, but we're going to try to focus in on the areas that we feel are specific to this agricultural community that these kids are living in, but equipping them for whatever they decide to do. Does that
Yes, it
help?
does. Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, the CTE office is there, and we've reached out to them a couple of times already, and we will continue our relationship with them to make sure that we're doing everything just like we are supposed to do. And we also will have, just going back to the population, there will be many outreaches. I have said, hey, I'll go door to door. You know, I'll go door to door and talk to parents if they have questions. But we have had, we have a local food truck there that is very popular, and she has offered to, you know, have a fundraiser for us. And when we do that, it would obviously be, you know, in a setting where we would be available to talk to people who were coming by and, you know, getting things like that. So we do have several ways, you know, that we can reach out. Gateway is its own city. It has its own, you know, monthly city council meetings. Avoca also has their own city council meetings. Little Flock has their own, you know, so there will be a large outreach from us personally going into these communities and talking to parents to garner support for our school. So,
And I would just like to, and I will say that I greatly appreciate your passion for what you guys would like to see happen here, and the amount of support that came with you today with the mayor's office and your, you know, local delegation. That to me is not lost. I'm just wanting to be comfortable with your plan, not only for implementation, but down the road. Because when we get kids excited about being in this environment, and then they get started in this environment, then the disappointing piece is when that environment can't continue for them. So that's where my thoughts are, and that's where my questions come from, is not in any way on your passion or the intent of the community to be able to support, but just
we've had those same conversations.
Just wanted to make sure if we provide
Yes.
something to kids,
Right.
and they're able to have that for the time that they would like to be involved in it.
I think the growth that we're seeing in those communities as the building moves out from Rogers, they are landlocked, so it's moving out in that direction. So I think that the part of the sustainability of this will come from the fact that more and more families and will be moving out this direction. It's kind of like the growth that we saw in Benton and Bryant out of Little Rock, and now into Haskell. It's tremendous as people bring their families and move into Northwest Arkansas and start working in areas of these big corporations that are out there. I think that's where our student enrollment will be solidified and grow. So.
Other questions? If there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
So let me make the motion to approve your application, and I don't know the sense of the committee, but I'll put this out here. You know, I think there, in corporate America, we call it blue sky, when there's kind of some stuff out there that's not really nailed down yet. And I know in a new school, that always exists to some degree. And I think there are some things that you could do that would make us probably more comfortable,
Okay.
especially with the back office support and contracts that you could engage in with that. And, I'm probably okay on your financial plan. I think I feel that you're gonna get there, both in year one and after that, which is why I'm making the motion. Plus, I understand what you're trying to do for your town. Small town guy, I get that. So let me make the motion to approve this based on those reasons, at this time.
Okay, I have a motion from Mr. Baldwin to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? I didn't get the count on that. So, that was 3 to approve. Did you abstain?
I did.
So, Shasta?
And I guess I would like a little bit more discussion on the motion, so,
Okay.
but go ahead.
Okay. So, how many approved?
3.
So this motion is deadlocked. It's dead.
Okay.
Did you vote? You're the tiebreaker. So, Mr. Chair, you have to vote to break the tie.
So I think I'm sitting where Dr. Wright McMurray is right now. And I think it's because I just really need more information. And so I'm going to vote to deny.
Is there any discussion that we can have at this point?
Yes.
So you're saying you need more information. Would you like to change that to a vote to defer, potentially?
But I think, don't we have to do a whole nother motion for that?
Yes.
Yes.
So is that on the table? If it is, the applicants might like to know that, instead of just an outright denial.
Well, that was my intent, was to deny that particular motion, but not necessarily
Okay.
the application.
So really it's a nay. You're voting nay.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
I'm voting nay.
So is this where we can have a little bit more
Yes.
discussion? So I go back to, and this short personal story. So I'm married to somebody who is from a small town and greatly appreciated and greatly benefited from having a school that was not far from them, and grew up in a farming family. So agriculture is hugely important to us. So I am there with you. As it relates to the application, there are some remaining questions that I do have, and I think if given just a little bit more time, you probably could come back to us with those responses and provide a little bit more comfort in going forward. Because I go back to my previous, again, you know, married to a small town person, understand it, you know, grew up in the city, but greatly appreciated being able to go pick my own salad when I wanted it. So I do understand that, but I just go back to that I don't want to get our students in limbo of, okay, we're transitioning to this school, okay, no, we're going to this school. And then something happens a couple of years because we just weren't as diligent on the front end, to where now they don't have that opportunity, now they're I just don't want to put our kids in that limbo. And I know you guys don't either.
Yeah.
And so that's just where I just want us to be very careful and intentional about how we get this started, so that we are in the best place for it to be successful, so that our kiddos have the best opportunity to enjoy the experience. So my desire would be that we give you an opportunity to go back, massage this a little bit more, come back with some responses to some of the questions that were posed here, and then allow us to be able to make a decision based off of that. That's where I would like to go.
That's where I would like to go as well, especially with the possibilities that are out there and the recent developments for you all. I mean, it's something that, you know, you could come back in a month or 2 months and be able to provide us all the information that we need. to really feel confident about the decision, and I think that's just where I'm sitting right now. And I know it's unfortunate circumstances, but at the same time, if we had that information, it would be helpful. So I'll entertain another motion.
So I would like to make a motion to defer a vote on Garfield Elementary charter application.
For how long?
Garfield Scholars. I was trying, Garfield Scholars Academy, GSA. Okay, I kept getting confused with the other GSA. For 60 days?
That's fine.
60 days. That would give you plenty of time to go and come back and still have ample time to prepare for the next school year. Yep.
I guess just one question about the motion. Would that give them time to enter any agreement with APSRC?
You're talking about with regards to like back office support or things of that nature? Yeah.
Things of that nature?
Obviously, they gotta exist before they can enter into an
Right.
agreement, so they have to be a true entity before they
Right.
can do anything, so, but we're going, if it's a charter school out there, we're gonna try and work with them and try and make something happen, so
Yeah.
we will try and support if this panel deems it, it deems them approved, we'll try to work with them going forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I have a motion by by Dr. Wright McMurray. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. And of course, no abstentions, so the motion passes. We'll see you in 60 days. What's the pleasure of the panel? Do we want to take a 10-minute break?
Yes.
Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break and we'll come back at 11:06.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
in regards to the voting sheet, is there anything that we need to do there?
No, we don't need to do anything with the voting sheet yet.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
We'll call the meeting back to order. Ms. Wagner?
For the last time, you guys have hearing procedures, so after the chair swears everybody who will be testifying in, the applicant gets 20 minutes to present, unless of course you talk to Alexa for more time. I do not believe we've received any public comments. Correct. We have not received any public comments for this applicant, and we've also received no opposition. So after you swear them in, they will present, and then we'll go to the legal review.
Thank you very much. Ms. Summons?
Dory Summons, Desi Charter Office. Freedom Learning Academy has submitted an application to establish an open enrollment charter school beginning in the 24-25 academic year. The charter will follow a blended education model. Mr. Andrew Curry will be speaking on behalf of Freedom Learning Academy.
Thank you. Dr. Curry, if you'll stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. All right, thank you very much.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm honored to be here with you today. I look forward to explaining the idea that, and concept that myself and Miss Lindsay Graham, who is on Zoom, she's up in the mountains today, corralling kids in her principalship that she's with, and you know, basically. The two of us together are kind of the ones that have got this concept going and hopefully can bring it to Arkansas. So, wrong way. Basically, this is who I am. This is the past career. I've got 28 years of service in Arkansas Public Schools, served high school principal. Been a superintendent in 4 different districts across the state. I'm a veteran, director of governmental affairs for a thriving Arkansas business currently. And I also have to give a big shout out to my wife who's with me today, Katie. She is principal at Fountain Lake Elementary School. She was kind enough to come and support me today, and I really appreciate her for that. She's one of the hardest working people I know in the education business, and very proud to be with her. Lindsay Graham is a young lady that I met while I was superintendent at Deer Mount Judy. If you're not familiar with that part of the state, it's basically halfway between Russellville and Harrison on Highway 7, probably the most isolated school district in the state. Ms. Graham is a former elementary school teacher, served as a career coach for North Ark Community College, digital learning instructor, and the director of the digital learning program that we had at Deer Mount Judy School District. She's also a homeschool mother, and basically operated in that world as well, and currently serving as principal at the Mount Judy School. Our purpose and what we plan on doing, if so granted the opportunity, is simple. We support the Arkansas taxpayers. We believe and advocate for parents to choose their child's educational path. We plan to offer support through multiple curricular choices and learn anytime and anywhere by fulfilling every student's individual potential. We will personalize an education plan that focuses on creating a dynamic school and family partnership. What we are not, we're not an enemy of the public school system. I have 4 children that are all public school graduates. I've got one in just completed medical school at UMS, and she's over in Nashville doing her residency right now. Very proud of her. I've got another one over at UCA that's working on his prerequisites for physician assistant, and then 2 more that are in the public school system right now. So our goal is to reach out to students that are not currently in the public school system. And we don't want to be a landing place either for students that have no motivation or desire to learn. Now, with that said, there's some of that in every time that you deal with children, you know, and that's something that all would have to deal with. Our students will be required to take the same standardized testing as any Arkansas public school student. This will allow for significant data to be studied that could further help shape the future of education in Arkansas. I've had the opportunity to be involved in consolidation of 2 small school districts in the past. I've been in the career field long enough to live through the Lakeview era and to kind of understand. I know Miss Newton knows all about kind of where that came from and kind of how that things have developed in Arkansas over time. But the goal of our idea is to basically be a catalyst, you know, for change, but to also, you know, help those parents that are looking for options. The first place that we would ask, if granted, and to have a blended learning center is in Springdale in Northwest Arkansas. That would be where, you know, a large majority of homeschool students are currently. Again, whenever I was at Deer Mount Judy as superintendent, I found out that there was a large pocket of these students that are located mostly throughout Northwest Arkansas. But there's different models that we could do for that. I believe that the first one would be a blended schoolhouse model where these students could come to the learning center at least 2 days a week. They could come 5 days a week if they wanted, but it would be our hope that they would at least show up to the blended learning center 2 days a week to have that face-to-face instruction and interaction with the teacher. The rest of the time, we would have teachers that would go out and meet with the students to make sure that they are staying on task and doing the things that need to be doing. Learning centers would be open daily for extra teaching and support. We would have IDEA services through special education that would be addressed in these in the blended learning centers, to include the speech, OT, occupational therapy, physical therapy. All of those different elements would be offered at that blending learning center. And then we would also have the career and college advising. I think this is probably the biggest component and area that we could be of help to the students. I think I'm a huge proponent of the trades. My father was a carpenter. I grew up on job sites. You know, I say my first job was bending out 10-penny nails, you know, that were left on the job site. I think that we've got a big gap in the trades area. I believe that we've got an opportunity to work with students in this area and to help them seek their potential in the trades. We also have, I think, a big opportunity here with the amount of jobs that are available in Northwest Arkansas and the trades and the industries that are in that area to form partnerships with those companies. Again, working with a business for the last year, I know that Arkansas businesses are struggling right now to find qualified applicants, and those applicants are around us every day. They're the kids that are growing up today. And I think we've got a real opportunity here to forge some partnerships with these businesses and to have different areas where they can go to work as soon as they graduate. I think, again, that we need to concentrate on the trades, industry, and manufacturing, and the STEM-related careers. But we're also going to offer academic opportunities for dual enrollment courses with local community colleges and universities. And then we're going to do tutoring and mentoring with a strong focus on financial literacy. I'm a big proponent of financial literacy for our students. I think a lot of them make poor financial choices even before they get to a place in life where they have to understand about them. I'm 51 and I'm still learning about financial choices myself. So I think it's needs to be a big component of learning that any student goes through, but especially with the students with our model. And then to have partnerships with career professionals in a work-study program. I think the last couple of years of a student's training or their high school experience should be something that is relevant and should be something that's preparing them for the workforce. Each and every one of us, is going to leave the workforce at some point in time, and we want those kids coming along the line for that. There, according to ADE, there's now 30,205 homeschool students in the state. That would make them the largest school district in the state if they were all together. 17, 18, there were about 20,000, and that's grown now 10,000 over that time period. If you look at trends and data, it would lead you to believe that number is going to continue to increase. And I know the state has the accounts that they're going to be supporting in the future. And I think that what the concept that we're talking about here is basically doing something in between and doing something that we could be a support to parents that are wanting to homeschool their students, but at the same time still provide a structure for them to be able to do the things that they want to do with their children. And I also think that Freedom Learning Academy can be used in the long term as a research study to help shape the future of education in Arkansas. There's not been very much comparison testing, with students that are homeschooled in an environment or in a different setting of this nature. And what sets us apart? I think, again, we want to be the bridge between a solely virtual and a regular public school. We want to have an environment it's full of library books for parents where they could come and check those out. They could have clubs, operations there, different areas. I know that working with and meeting some of the folks in Northwest Arkansas, for example, the Fayetteville Boys and Girls Club is rented out 2 days a week for students to come in that are homeschool students. Those students, are coming together on a weekly basis to have that social interaction that's sometimes talked about with homeschool students that's difficult. And at the same time, I believe that the Learning Center could be a place where these students are coming to and making those connections socially as well. This concept, is in other states as well. And I believe it's something that could work here in Arkansas. Again, it provides parental choice. It gives those parents the options, of maybe not having their student in a regular public school, but yet, they have that connection and that ability to do what they think is best for their own children. Individualized learning, it would give us an opportunity to work with those kids, again, to develop a career and college pathway for them, and then also to be able to work with them individually on a daily basis in order to find out exactly what they need. You know, many homeschool families would appreciate a partnership that would help their children reach their full potential and achieve their education goals. A lot of the things that I found in the past and worked with homeschool students whenever we were offering the ACT Aspire, 90% of those parents wanted their students to go to college or have a further path for education, for their education. And in order to offer them an opportunity to participate in the ACT Aspire, that led to those parents then coming back and asking, okay, how do we get our students to perform better on the standardized test? Which led to a conversation then about, okay, you can do these things in literacy and math and science, social studies. So it was more of a way to lead, you know, parents into the conversation about, you know, the different curriculums that are out there. We would plan on using the Department of Education's already approved digital learning programs that are out there, and we would offer them the opportunity to choose from those different programs of curriculum. And we would have a meeting at the beginning of every year with the parent where we would basically be sitting down and, you know, letting them choose what curriculum they want for the year for their student. We'd also be providing them then with the means to do so. And we would be focusing on individual learning, you know, using certified Arkansas teachers. That's the goal. As everybody knows, that's sometimes difficult, and there are alternative pathways, and we would hope to follow that if needed. Here are the resources that we'd be offering to the students. One's a learning fund. You know, we would give that to the students' parents that would follow the same guidelines for the Freedom accounts that are out there now, or recently, that have been approved. They would have those similar guidelines to have to follow in order to qualify for the Learning Fund. Again, they would have the Department of Education approved digital learning curriculum. We would provide the science of reading assessors that's so important right now with the literacy. Dyslexia screening. The Resource Center would also provide tutoring, one-on-one help, and the socialization opportunities. We'd have technologies, the textbooks, the supplies. We would do internet reimbursement for our families. We would have guest speakers and field trips to different places for those students to have both opportunities for them to see what's going on in business and industry, and also to have socialization opportunities as well. And we'd have clubs that would focus on career career exploration and college planning. We'd also have counseling services for those students, again, to help them with their future plans and to have that connection. Again, what we're wanting to do is basically bridge that gap between public school and homeschool students, and to be that combined effort there that's basically the bridge. And to sum it all up, there are many families across our state that do an excellent job every day of educating their own children, and that would like help to continue doing so, you know, without the state's help. You know, however, There are many that would appreciate a partnership to help their child reach their full potential and achieve their educational goals. And that's where Freedom Learning Academy would be, is basically try to be the bridge in between those two. And that's basically where we're at right now. And I appreciate your time. Willing to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Miss Wagner, the legal review, please.
So if you guys will see the legal review, you'll see it is very short. The charter did not ask, but for the 4 waivers that are listed, those 4 waivers are all fully effectuated, but I did ask that he provide additional rationale to all of you just on those because they are so short. There was one thing though, when I spoke with Dr. Curry, in order to do a synchronous, asynchronous model that he's using, you would have to waive instructional day. Or flexible schedule, we kind of use those terms interchangeably, which is the 6-hour course day, because he's not necessarily, if you have a student who is virtual or is working at their own pace, they're not necessarily going to be sitting there for 6 hours a day. So he would need to add that waiver for this, along with for fully virtual kids. If he has those kids, then you would also need a recess waiver because you can't, in fact, have 40 minutes of instruction when the child is not actually present with you. So he would need to add those 2 waivers to do this model. Dr. Curry, I believe it was your intention to add those, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Would you just confirm that on the record?
Yes, I confirm on the record.
So those would be added to this as well. I did have a couple of things. So one, same thing with the previous applicant, updating on the 501c3 status, just to see where that's at. And I'll let the applicant respond to let you know.
I just had one question about the library media specialist. It said that in the narrative, it said that they might have a contract. Would that require a waiver? And is that the intention, I guess?
If they hired somebody that had the library media special, you'd have to hire someone,
Right.
not just contract with.
Right.
Dr. Curry,
Yeah, sure.
would you like to?
Originally, I think the thought process is that we would partner with local libraries in the area and work with public libraries. I think now, probably the thought process is that we would try to hire somebody with a library media specialist, and have them housed at the learning center where we would also have, the access to the media as well.
And then,
And back to the 501c3 status, we have that. I think I forwarded it to you. Did you see that?
I didn't.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Yes, we do have the 501c3 status now completed, and I'll make sure I get that to you as well.
and then the next question was, would there need to be one for nutrition?
Yes, he'll have to hire somebody for nutrition to cover those.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Which he didn't ask for a waiver of that, so anything he did not ask for a waiver for,
Okay.
he is fully, because he signed the statement of assurance that was in the back of his packet.
Okay.
So that in itself states that if the charter applicant is not waiving, then the charter applicant is assuring that they will comply.
Okay.
So he will have to comply with everything that is not asked to waive here. Besides the 2 additional waivers, that the instructional day flexible schedule, which is Arkansas Code Annotated 616-102, except A5, and standard 1A.4.3. And then recess is Arkansas Code Annotated 616-102A5, and standard 1A.4.3, along with the DESI rules governing nutrition, section 7. And I would ask that the charter, the applicant, narrow that recess waiver to fully virtual students only, but I will let him respond.
Yes, and we would like to amend that. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Taking into account the mandatory days of attendance, then does he fall under, which category does he fall under? Clearly it's not virtual. So wouldn't he be obligated, or would he be, I'll ask you, would he be obligated to the same numbers or some numbers, or I don't know, can can that be negotiated? Is that a policy, or certainly could be requested as a waiver? I'm not sure. I'm just confused about that.
Okay, so the number of days that they have to attend, the 178 days or 1,068 hours of instructional time, that has not been asked to waive. What he is waiving essentially is the 6 hours sitting in front of a teacher teaching at the same time. Like that, it's for the blended synchronous. So you have to comply with one of those two standards, whether it be 178 days or 1,068 hours in order to qualify under LEARNS, because he's not asked for a waiver of the minimum teacher salary requirements. So part of that 50,000 will be complying with the 178 or the 1,068 hours.
And then as far as course credit, it's 120 hours for a credit.
Yes.
Or mastery. And
Yes.
so that's not being waived is.
No,
okay.
that has not been requested.
Okay. Just the thing is with the mastery piece, those have to be approved by learning services. So.
Correct.
Okay. Just putting that on the record.
Correct.
The other question I have is relative to, as I understand that the Learning Center is gonna be at least 2 days a week, correct?
I will let him ask.
Okay,
answer
but
that.
this is, well, I want to know, and maybe both of you, how that's a situation where someone may show up and they may not. How will you count absenteeisms, and how will you ensure, how will the numbers work for you on attendance?
Yes, ma'am, and this is basically the way that it would operate is, so for the 2 days at least that they're gonna be required to come to the learning centers, so those would count as the 2 days for the week. And then in the other times, they're going to be monitored, hate the word monitored, but they will be monitored by their teacher of record that's online, that they are actually completing and working on their assignments. So that will be counted as a day of instruction in the 1,068 minutes of instruction. Does that make sense?
It doesn't answer my question.
Okay.
They meet the requirements for the online teaching, but they miss many more days than they should as it relates to the 2 days a week.
Yes, ma'am. We'll have a calendar that will reflect 178 days of instruction and the 1,000, which is, it'll reflect both. But, and they'll be responsible, and attendance will be taken daily for them to be there, I guess. And I may be misunderstanding you.
How will the students are not virtual, how will they be staffed? That ones that would actually be in a class, be taking courses. How would your program address that, the staffing?
The staffing? Yes, ma'am. So in AppsCan, there would be a teacher of record that would be certified for them, and that teacher would be responsible for the amount of students just to follow the standards. And then anything over what the standards met, of course, we would pay them above and beyond that.
So we have some questions from our area specialists.
I've got just a couple more things.
Okay.
And they were things that I discussed with Dr. Curry before we got up here. So on his application, he kind of used the term superintendent and principal interchangeably when he talked about hiring and firing responsibilities. So when I talked to Dr. Curry, he explained that he is going to serve in that role because he's licensed as both a principal and a superintendent. So that's why he doesn't need a licensure waiver there. But I'll let him explain what he meant about the hiring process. The superintendent will not have the final decision authority. That will lie with the board. They will make recommendations to the board, and then the board will make the final determination. Have I summed that up correctly?
That's absolutely correct. We're going to have a at-large 5-member board. Actually, we've got probably the same folks that we stated for our 501c3 and let them start off. We'll stagger terms just like you do normally, and have monthly board meetings with board reports and all those good things that we would be offering as well.
So I will put one thing on the record. So in your incorporating documents, I noticed you were one of the incorporators. You will not be sitting on your board, correct? Okay, just want to clarify that on the record. Yes.
Do we not need a waiver of the policies for board election?
So as a charter, there's nobody to elect.
Right.
But
Typically,
yes, typically they do waive those board procedures and board policies. That may be something that we have to discuss, and they have to come back and seek an amendment for that, just so we see how this all works.
Okay.
But yes, that is something typically that we see.
Are we okay to take questions from the specialists at this point?
I have
One
one
more
other
thing,
thing
okay.
just to bring. I also just wanted to put on the record, so I looked through his 501c3 documentation, Dr. Curry, and I noticed that your 501c3, you've got a major revenue jump from 7/1 of 23 to 24. I just want to put on the record, and we know the 501c3, so your sponsoring entity cannot take foundation funding. That's got to stay with your charter. Okay, perfect. Just want to put it on the record, make everything clear, but I'm good now.
All right, thank you very much. All right, Ms. Dill? Ms. Dill? We'll move on to Ms. Barnett.
Thank you. I just want to encourage you to really actively pursue getting a school librarian. Your model seems to lend itself very well to personalized learning and inquiry, motivated by those students. So a school librarian is actually in a perfect position to encourage that and to act as a facilitator and a mentor to those students. So I think that this would be an opportunity you shouldn't miss with working with those students. So again, I encourage you to actively pursue having a school librarian at your facility.
Thank you for that too, and I agree with you. I think that with literacy being the focus not only of the state but also of our school, we want to make sure that we have those opportunities there. The other thought process is that if we get the right person that understands the concept with it, hopefully that person can be a resource to parents as well and help them understand technology. You know, sometimes we have a little bit of a harder time with technology. So hopefully our library media specialist, we could conduct some trainings for parents, you know, for technology, especially if they're going to be, you know, on campus, off campus.
Yes, and what I would hope is that school librarian wouldn't be just talking about how to use the technology, but incorporating our standards, which are very much focused on digital literacy, which is an information literacy, which is helping our students really dig in and evaluate information and picking that good information over the bad information. And I don't necessarily always see that built into curriculums, and so again, this is an opportunity for you to have someone who can really push out that that kind of teaching.
Thank you. Ms. Green?
Hello, I saw that you addressed special education. I'm Yvonne Green in the Office of Special Education, and I saw that you addressed special ed. I am wondering how in the blended model you are going to ensure that students are receiving their services in the least restrictive environment and reviewing that those service needs as the student demonstrates that might need to be addressed, even if that's more than annually. Your plan specifically said annually.
Yes, ma'am. And you know, I think that we had in the application that we were going to hire a special ed LEA, you know, or the person that'd be overall responsible for that. But we would want to also make sure that the LEA had the opportunity to have, I guess, more of a closer interaction with those students that are in special ed, so that the least restrictive environment at their home could also be you know, where they're at as well, and to provide any, of course, accommodations that are gonna be needed, for those students, because ultimately, you know, that's how we're gonna help those students learn, more effectively.
I think I was just curious because sometimes a virtual setting is not highly effective for our students with disabilities. Sometimes it's the best situation and sometimes it's not. So it can be very dependent on how that student is in that moment.
And then Ms. Dill has put a comment in the chat to me. Her microphone is not working, so she said that on the original application it was stated that meals would be waived. Now it states that meals will be vended through FSMC. This service must be procured properly in order to use federal funds. This does not require a bid process. Also, there's no waivers allowing for virtual meals to be served to students. They must be on campus.
Right, and that was our goal with the food service. It was basically, what we were gonna do is provide that option for the parents to either come in and pick up those meals or have them on site. You know, would be, and we were, you know, hopefully going to, have that, the, Food Service Management Company, that's what the FSMC stands for, but we were gonna have them tailor it to our particular, population. You know, to where, the students that are there coming in for the 2 days a week that are mandatory, of course, they'll be having their meals there. And then anyone else, you know, we could work with them, from that point. Now, I understand there's, probably some, things there where they'll have to work, together on it, and figure it out and to follow all the areas of, you know, that we're supposed to with food service, and that's our plan.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I feel like I'm getting some, and I think this last response is one of those responses in which it feels as if there are what we would like to do or what we hope to do or our plan was to do. I need some specificity, if we could, around some of these answers in order for us to understand that that's what will happen. And you know, understanding that there's always some things that will pivot and change. So once again, can I just get a clear understanding in regards to the food service aspect, what will happen, and what the plan is, and you know, you mentioned the idea of, you know, food service being provided. Has there been a conversation around the execution, and what did the supplier say? Like, I need some real specificity here, if you wouldn't mind, and throughout this conversation. Sorry if I'm overstepping, Chair.
No, you're good.
No, Mr. Davis, I appreciate you're asking for more information about that, and to be completely honest with everybody here, there has not been a conversation yet with a food service management company that would develop a particular program for us, and that's, you know, on me. But I do know, working in the past, different companies, that this is an option to be able to do. So then again, I can't give you the specifics that you want there, Mr. Davis, and I apologize for that.
And then I did want to add, Ms. Dill had also put in the chat that federal regulations require that meals are consumed on site. She said it has changed a little for the summer meals, but not for the meals during the school year. So just so that you're aware of that.
I would, our plan would be to work with child nutrition too, to make sure that we're following every bit of that. And that's not we're going to, that is, you know, we will follow the child nutrition guidelines for that, you know, for it.
All right. I guess we'll move to the panel. We'll start down here with Ms. Newton. Do you have any questions?
Not at this point.
Mr. Baldwin?
Yes, just a few. So, you mentioned and I think in the application it mentions a 5-member board. Do you have a board right now, or do you have names that you could share with us?
Yes, sir. What we have is we have, and Ms. Graham, you may have a little bit more information too about the board. We did have to name a board for our 501c3. Our particular, those are the 5 individuals that we planned on, from the beginning, is using as the board.
I haven't seen that
Yes, sir.
501c3 application.
Right, and I apologize, I guess I should have had those names here today for that, but we do already have 5 members that have agreed, to be supportive and to be our board from the very beginning. And like I said, we planned on, and we will develop staggered terms for those boards, just like any other Arkansas board, like Academics Plus over in Maumelle has, some of the ESTEM, some of those other charter schools. So we would have.
So are the board members listed in the 501c3 application intended to be the board for the school, or were they just?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
What is their professional background and experience?
Ms. Graham, do you have, can you answer some questions about the board members, please?
Ryan Hartman is a math specialist. He is currently serving in the military, but he has been employed at the Harrison School District as a math specialist. Gina Lackey is a reading specialist, and she is currently employed as a healthcare provider for an individual student, but her background is reading. Stephanie Overman is with the Arkansas Extension Agency. And then the lady that you have from Watson Chapel.
That'd be Ms. Carrie McNeil,
Yes.
and she's currently federal programs for that district.
So is the math specialist and reading specialist, are those designations from a school system, or is that how do you, I don't know.
Yes,
what that is.
he served as a math specialist for the Harrison School District. Yes, sir.
Who else is involved in your process to come before us? You're here with you and your wife, and usually we see more folks, and I guess I'm wondering about the support structure behind you.
Yes.
And both from a community support perspective and then also from just an educational support perspective.
I've had lots of conversations with APSRC in the past about this model. Not only more recently, but it was my thought process that I will work with APSRC as far as the financial end of things. The bookkeeping aspect. But the thought process is that I would have APSRC involved. I've also had a conversation with one of our education cooperatives in the state that may be an option as well to help with the bookkeeping. I know that's going to be very important to make sure taxes are paid, bills are paid, invoices, those sort of things.
Thank you. And then I'm trying to understand. So I'm not an educator. I don't
Yes,
know
sir.
really what a blended model is, and I'm learning this virtual and a classroom setting. And I read that you're going to seek students from all over the state. It sounds like.
I think that in the beginning, we're going to try to stick to that Northwest Arkansas area, yes, and that we would go from there to having the different learning centers in different parts of the state.
Okay.
So, we may look next, Hot Springs or Central Arkansas, perhaps that area, Jonesboro, would probably be one of the next, and I would, come back to, and ask for, the opportunity to expand.
Okay, that helps me. I was reading, section 28.
Yes, sir.
Which is the recruitment process, and it says here, student recruitment and enrollment will be open to all students statewide. And I was
Yes.
wondering how that would work, if 2 days a week they needed to be in a building in Springdale.
Right.
And, so talk to us about how the being in the building works. Will they be scheduled and the same students will be there at the same time, or is it just whoever comes on that day?
That would be within the process of working with their teacher to make sure that 2 days a week they were coming in, so we could basically make good contact with them. And it would be from that particular area, and we would have that connection there. That's kind of where we were thinking of.
Okay. So would it be the same teacher for those kids, or would it be varied teachers?
No, each one of the students would have a teacher assigned to them based on what their certification level is and based on what they're certified in.
Okay. So you'll have 250 students in year one, and I'm trying to understand.
Yes, sir.
The 2 day a week thing. So will they all be there together on 2 days, or will they be?
They could be, but it's not necessary that they are. So in other words, we may have, since we're gonna be 5 through 12, we may have 5, 6, and 7 may all meet on Mondays and Tuesdays. And then, 7, 8, 9 may come in the next couple of days. But it may be also an opportunity, because what we're wanting to do is to provide maximum flexibility for the parents. So it may be an opportunity then to where they work with that teacher and say, okay, this week, we're gonna be able to come in Thursday and Friday. And the other 3 days, they may be meeting in a coffee shop with that teacher one-on-one. Of course, they're not gonna all meet together at the same time, but that teacher is gonna make contact daily with the student, either through virtual or that direct connection.
Okay, so that's helpful.
Yes, sir.
In your budget, you have that you're gonna do 250 students in year one.
Yes.
You roll up to, I think, 500 the next year, and then you cap off at 1,000. Will all of those students be from you talked about statewide versus Springdale.
Yes, sir.
And when does the statewide start, or is this all perceived to be in the Springdale?
I think that as time goes and we see success, that we would want to come back and ask for an expansion. This model in other states is, there's a lot of students that have, come in and are working with it. So it would seem to me that over time, you would hope to grow that amount to, I don't think you want to get into the 30,000 range by any means, but I think that 1,000 students could be manageable, both financially and you could work it out to where you may have 250 students in Northwest Arkansas, and you may have 250 in Central Arkansas, and then you'd have to kind of go from there over the years and kind of expand and see where the need is. Also would have something to do with it. There's going to be different pockets of the state that have larger homeschool populations, and that are, basically, those areas are going to, have more in them than you do in other parts of the state.
So maybe this is a question for you all. If we approve this as it's written, are we approving 1,000 student enrollment camp for the Springdale location?
Yes.
Okay.
Based on the way that it's written out, but it would be a progressive cap, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then final question is,
Yes, sir.
you've talked a lot about homeschooling, and is that your
No.
target market of children? that you're
That's
trying
our
to support?
target, yes, but, you know, we would be an open enrollment charter school. It would, you know, ultimately, we'd have the lottery system like the others do as well, that we could accept anyone, or we will accept anyone.
Why would a homeschool family be interested in doing this?
In this program. Ms. Graham, do you have an answer for that one?
I believe you may be muted.
I apologize for that. It's been our experience that there are some homeschool families out there that would love the support. They're not necessarily interested in sending their students for social reasons or for a number of reasons to public school, but they are still looking for the structure and the support system that the public school offers. So we have found some really great partnerships with those families that are looking for a place to bring their students, you know, a couple of days a week, 3 days a week for those types of services, whether it be, you know, speech or a library where they can access media. But those are the things that we have found across the state, and we were actually quite surprised at how many people are willing to work with the public school system after choosing to homeschool their students.
So if the homeschool families are interested in this, help me understand how this education works. So do they continue their homeschool education under their own system and then bring the kids to you 2 days a week, or do they walk away from their homeschool education and do the virtual?
We have, the requirements that we have are for quarterly assessments. So, you know, basically they're going to be looked at on a quarterly basis of completing assignments. So, of course, if the parent wants to teach above and beyond the digital, you know, curriculum that they chose, that's up to them. I mean, they have that right to do so. But they will be held to task for the curriculum, the digital curriculum that they choose in the beginning of the year with their student.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So the line's still a little blurry for me, so can you kind of describe how is this different from a service provider?
Say it again.
So how is this not a service provider, but a school? I'm trying to get to that distinction.
Are you saying with a public school that
Or
it has?
charter school, you know,
Right.
because those are public schools
Right.
as well.
Right. You know, basically it is that learning center, I believe, that makes it completely different. I think that that's gonna be the thing that basically brings people together in a particular area and allows you to have that sense of community that's gonna be there for those parents. I think it's gonna be a place that they can come to again, to have that interaction, socialization, and have that sense of belonging to something, you know, to a bigger group.
Ms. Wagner?
To provide a point of clarity that I think will answer your question, Mr. Baldwin, in order to receive for this charter applicant, if this becomes a school, in order to receive full ADM funding, these students must be full-time enrolled students. So they will have to no longer be homeschool students, they will have to be public school students. Now I understand this model will look very similar to maybe what they're used to as a homeschool student, and maybe that is the attraction, but they will have to be fully enrolled in order for the applicant, his charter, to receive full ADM funding.
Yeah, and in the past, like I said, whenever I've dealt with this in the past, that concept gets hard to keep, you know, differentiated, because as soon as you sign the paperwork, like you have to have, as soon as they're enrolled in the app scan, they do become public school students, or, you know, from that point forward. And, you know, then again, you say, well, if they don't want to be in public school, then why are they homeschooled? It is about, you know, helping that taxpayer, you know, get get the help they need with their child.
Ms. Saraceni?
I have several questions. One, I'm kind of confused because you keep saying digital. So is it blended or is it totally digital?
They're gonna
I'm kind of
choose,
confused.
right. We have there's about 15 of them, I guess, different digital curriculums.
Yes,
that are
I've been on a
approved.
committee to approve them here, so
Uh-huh.
yes, I'm very
Yes, ma'am.
aware. So
Right.
is it all digital?
They
Or-
would choose that particular model, whichever one they want of those approved programs right now. And they would be on that the majority of the time, the 3 days they're not at the Learning Center. When they're at the Learning Center, then they would be basically getting the extra help they need or answer mom's questions, or it would, whomever is there with them.
So tell me, what does that look like when they're on at the Learning Center, or you said at the coffee shop talking with a teacher? What does that look like?
It looks like that it's a certified Arkansas teacher that's helping a student, just like probably today throughout the state in different classrooms. They're helping those kids get the help they need.
I'm still a little quite unclear, but I'll go into another question. It says that you're gonna have a director, an assistant director, and a principal, and then a while ago, Ms. Shasta told us that you were gonna be the principal, so who's gonna be the director?
Well, in the beginning, with the low, depending on what the numbers are, depending on where we're at, I would serve in those capacities, in the beginning of things.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Will you have put on your budget a line item for a salary for a director, a salary for a principal?
Mm-hmm.
And so, are those gonna be stackable salaries? Those are just things that I would ask.
Right, I would think, according to the standards right now, you have to have a half-time superintendent, you have to have a half-time principal if you're less than 450, isn't that correct?
That is correct.
Right, so then you could serve in both those capacities in the beginning, and then as time goes by, yes, you would have an assistant director probably. If you had 1,000 students, I would think that it would be necessary to have those positions as time goes by. Yes, ma'am. It was my understanding in that budget that we were listing positions, I guess from the very beginning, I probably should have clarified that.
Those were things that were unclear. And then, you said that you were gonna work with, I just want clarity on bookkeeper, accounts payable. I know that APSRC is here, are you going to work with them as that bookkeeper, accounts payable? I mean, it's all this unclear, I just want
So
clarity.
APSRC, and I may be wrong on this, but they offer that as a service to public schools right now and also to charter schools, so that would be the first option to go to.
Dr. Sutherland, members of the panel, Trip Walter, Staff Attorney, APSRC. I guess a couple points of clarification. One, we do not support the application. Two, if the panel, as Mr. Smith said earlier, in earlier applications, if the panel sees fit to approve the application, then certainly we would offer assistance to them as to exactly the form that would look like. We would just have to see if and when it happens. But as I think as mentioned before, those back office financial service are certainly one of the things that we do offer in general.
Thank you.
Yes.
Why, let me ask, if I may,
Yes.
why do you not support the application?
Well, I can't really speak for Mr. Smith, but my understanding is that Dr. Curry had never presented his educational model and plans to him, and really didn't have a conversation as to what it was going to be about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
established locations in Springdale that students will go to, or are they, locations that are most convenient for the family? Can you give me a little bit more
Okay.
detail what those look
So
like?
the face-to-face will be in one location in Springdale, where students come to the 2 days a week or more. I mean, they could come 5 days a week if they want, but that's one location. The other locations will be determined by the teacher of the class and the parent, forming that partnership, where they can meet, or whether it's online. They may make the connection there, but the goal is to have that face-to-face interaction daily, whether it is through technology or face-to-face in the classroom.
So the one location that they're coming to,
Mhm.
have we identified what that one location is going to be?
Have not yet. I was waiting to kind of see where we go from here.
Then also I had, questions about your CTE course offerings.
Yes, ma'am.
So I noticed under curriculum that you, indicate there will be 100+ CTE courses that will be available to students.
Right.
Can you kind of talk us through a little bit more what that's going to look like, how that's going to be offered?
Yes. I think we're going to have different opportunities through virtual programs to offer those opportunities for students. But then we're also going to, incorporate the apprenticeships and the learning, actually going out and working in different businesses and industries, with those students. But the different the 3 different opportunities that have to be offered for standards will be offered virtually.
And so, do you mind speaking a little bit more on, is that going to be a partnership through, one of our other established, online providers, maybe like Virtual Arkansas or ARPA? How are you planning?
Right. All of those opportunities will come from, again, the already Arkansas approved digital learning curriculum that's out there.
And so then, also thinking about, I saw that you have outlined, you have college and career readiness activities that will be included in the process for students. Do you mind giving a little bit more detail just on your comprehensive, school counseling plan, how that looks like for your students that are involved in this learning format?
Yes. It's going to be basically where the parent, the student, the teacher is setting down, developing that plan, career plan for the student. Whether, let's say, for example, if you have a student who wants to be a welder, right? They're going to develop a way of getting that training for the student, so that student can develop and go on to a career, as soon as possible after they graduate. The goal would be is to provide them with that training. Let's say Northwest Arkansas Technical Center, where they could get that training while they're in high school. You could also have the Career Center opportunities for those students that are offered through the community colleges as well. But I think the whole goal there is to create a comprehensive plan for that student, probably around, of course, in 8th grade. They have those opportunities as well, but to make sure that you're following up on them and making sure that you're giving that opportunity to the student to go to work or go to college or get the extra training that they need, or military, of course.
And, couple of items in the, just a couple items in the budget. So we got the explanation on APSRC and the opportunities there, and I see that as an inclusion, as a line item of potential expenditures. But then I also see an inclusion of a fee for a CMO. So do you anticipate
No.
that being something
No, ma'am. No.
So you guys are gonna remain a standalone, or?
Well, you know, I don't think right now that there is a CMO that's Arkansas-based, you know, at this point. I think that that's probably something that could develop as time goes by, and it may be something that, you know, that we could do as time goes by. But I mean, I don't see that a charter management organization at this point would be something that we would be looking for.
That's all I asked, because you did include costs associated, that's why I was asking.
Okay.
If you had something in mind.
I understand.
That
Yeah. I have a whole lot of respect for APSRC and Scott, and the work that they do as well. I've had a lot of conversations in the past with them about this concept as well. This concept is very successful in other states, and you know, sorry to see that we didn't make connections beforehand, because we probably should have.
Any further questions from the panel? Mr. Davis?
Yeah, I do. I have several questions here. On page 6 of the application, I think you mentioned around the goals. I'm gonna quickly, I have the pleasure of being able to quickly kind of get there. I want to make sure I'm asking the right question and it's on the correct page. Yeah, in regards to the performance criteria and the goals, you have goals that indicate that you hope, well, not that you hope, that students will meet or exceed state average proficiency rates in math, that they will meet or exceed state average proficiency rates in reading, so forth and so on. Are you suggesting that 100% of the students that attend this public blended school will meet or exceed the state average in those categories? Or would you like to say a certain percentage of those students you feel confident about being able to do that?
Yeah, I definitely think that was probably a misnomer on our part. Ms. Graham, do you have anything to add to that?
I believe you're muted again.
Sorry. Bells are ringing and doors are slamming. Of course, we would hope that we would have 100%. That would be our ultimate goal. But yes, Dr. Curry's right. We would probably need to put a more realistic percentage on that.
Okay. The same thing when it comes to apprenticeships and dual enrollment. You know, there may be some more specificity there, unless you're suggesting, which I would love to see happen, that 100% of students that participate are in some type of apprenticeship and or dual enrollment courses. So you know, it'd be great if we can get some specificity around that. You also mentioned in your presentation that you hope that they would show up 2 days a week. What if they don't show up? Well, I mean, if students don't show up at all, is that okay in your mind?
No, at some point, I guess you would do the same thing you would for a regular public school student. You'd go to the FINS petition, the Family Need of Support Services, turn them over to the juvenile system and let that work out the way it does, because they are now public school students and would have to operate under that particular area. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And back to the specificity.
It definitely does. Are you suggesting that the guidance counselor or someone would be responsible for that whole process?
Yes, sir.
Contacting family, visiting the home, all those things?
Right. Just like in a normal public school, a FINS petition, probably by the principal, would be initiated. It would go to the juvenile office just like it would in any other school. And back to your question about the dual enrollment, I want to talk about that just a little bit more. Those things are, for example, if you have a student that wants to take English Comp 1 and they've got the ability to go to the community college and do that, that is the dual enrollment that we're talking about there for academically speaking. The other terms, you know, would be if they want to take a career and technical ed program offered by, in this particular circumstance, Northwest Arkansas Technical School or the community college there, they would have that opportunity as well.
Yeah, and not that it's needed, but have you had any conversations with NWAC or NWA Tech about potentially these students enrolling in their courses, or that just hasn't happened yet until, you're waiting until, if approved, with a student,
Well,
who might be interested?
I will say that I've had enough interaction with Arkansas career centers to know that they're more than willing to, train students that are enrolled in Arkansas schools. So.
Yep. Okay.
Yes,
Getting back to the attendance piece, you sort of mentioned once again, the 2 days a week, and if they're not showing up, that you would then begin with a FINS petition. When do you begin with a FINS petition? They don't show up for 2 weeks. Is that when you start? They don't show up for a month. Is that when you start? Like, what's qualifying? And this kind of gets to Ms. Newton's question around attendance. Like, when do you begin to move on a FINS petition, considering that students aren't obligated to come 2 days a week?
Right. I think we would follow a very similar, as what most public schools do right now. It would be, I would say after 2 weeks, you'd probably be, or after however many days, you would send out a letter to the parent, notifying them that they've got to be in school, doing the things that they're supposed to be doing, monitoring them online. If they're not doing that after a certain amount of days, then you move to the next level and eventually follow the process just like in a regular public school.
Okay, so with whatever the rules and regulations are regarding traditional schools, that's what you'll be doing. You mentioned the idea, and I appreciate the financial literacy piece. Have you identified a curriculum for the financial literacy work just yet?
I have not, Mr. Davis, but I'd be more than willing to listen to any suggestion you might have, because I know there are some really good ones out there. I do know there's a Dave Ramsey that tailors to students,
Yep. Just a couple more questions from me. In regards to the outreach to the community, if approved, in regard about this new public school, right? How are you thought about the marketing, or have there been conversations? You mentioned the idea of having some connection with those families that are homeschooling, but what about the community broadly? Have you thought about how you plan on sort of creating connection with individuals, entities, those that may not be homeschooled, who may be interested in your model, and what might that look like?
Ms. Graham, do you have anything you want to add there?
We have had boots on the ground in Northwest Arkansas, and have many families that have had have shown interest in this, and by word of mouth, we've had more interest in this. I would say our target has been homeschoolers, so above and beyond the homeschool community, we have not thought through how we would address advertising beyond that. I feel like, based on the interest that we've received thus far, we would have a waiting list. So we haven't thought through the additional advertisement.
That's actually really exciting to hear, that with a projected number of 250 students the first year, you anticipate potentially having a waiting list. Is that correct?
Sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
In the budget, it only identifies 3 teachers of record. If I'm not mistaken, three classroom teachers of record the first year. Is that correct? So 250 students, 3 classroom teachers. Is that what am I seeing that correctly?
I don't think so. I think what our thought process is that in the beginning, we're going to have to hire at least 3. Of course, October 1 for app scans, when you would report We would probably have to hire more, depending on the exact number that we have. We don't want to hire more staff than we need in the beginning, of course, because we do want to be fiscally prudent with the funds. So, you know, we would want to hire just like regular schools do. If they have a big influx of students, they'll wait until October 1, in between the beginning of school and October 1, to do the optimal hiring.
Yeah. I would suggest, considering that there is a wait list on 250 students, I would suggest that you think about potentially revisiting that. And from the department standpoint, is that from a student-teacher ratio and this blended model? I'm not sure what the regulation requires, if any. Can someone speak to that for me?
So class size would be for 5, 6 is 28, and then 30 beyond that. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. But then you also have teaching load, which is 150 students per day.
Okay. So in a blended model, they still will be required to sort of focus on the class size, as opposed to a full virtual model in which those numbers are not as small. Is that right?
If it were fully virtual, then it would be large group instruction. But since it's blended, there would need to be a different ratio. So it would need to be the same ratio as the state requires.
Okay. Okay. And so, yeah, my suggestion might be that you revisit that based upon the projected number of students. The first year, the idea that there potentially can be more students than that because there appears to be some significant interest. And then the other thing in regards to the budget, I mean, I think we talked about the idea of the director, we talked about the idea of principal. There appears to be, there's an assistant director, a curriculum director, a special education director. I'm just looking at the number of staff, what appears to be more lead staff compared to classroom teachers. On page 94 during that first year. So you have 3 classroom teachers, but you probably have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guidance counselors, so forth, on the sort of leadership side. And, significant salary. Have you identified an assistant director just yet?
We do. Mrs. Graham was probably going to be that person for that at that time. But now, again, we're not talking about having a principal and a superintendent for 250 kids. What we're talking about is, kind of once things take off. Like I said, neighboring states have, a large number of students in this, so I think you would have to accommodate and adjust based on, how many students you actually, did have.
Yeah, okay. And sorry if I can only go by what's sort of written in the document, but I appreciate the idea of adjusting based upon, if approved, what the reality on the ground might be. I think it's critically important to stay flexible there. My last question that I have is actually for the department, and I'm wondering, in regards to, since they have not identified a location for in-person, is the state responsible when it comes to student safety in a model like this? And is there some concern that there hasn't been a location identified? I'm just trying to wrap my head around, the student safety aspect of this type of work and who ultimately is responsible, specifically when we haven't identified a location and what that might look like.
Ms. Wagner.
Mr. Davis, to answer your question, the charter applicant, if they are approved, will be responsible for student safety. That's not something that they can waive, so they will be responsible for that. when they maintain a site. Now, since this is a blended model, I'm going to assume that the site that they use, they're going to have a lease for. That lease will have to come to us to be approved, which is where we will find out exactly where that location is, unless the panel, of course, puts something in when you approve, if you approve, that they have to provide that location to you upon receiving that location. We can certainly do that.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying, and I just want to be clear about this, and this helps inform a lot of the work moving forward. Although the institution is a public school receiving public funds, the entity, the 501c3, the sponsoring entity will be responsible for student safety. Is that what I hear you saying?
No, the applicant,
Okay.
so the sponsoring entity just sponsors essentially the application, okay? The applicant, once approved, becomes a charter. They get their LEA number, they're official at that point, right? They are responsible for school safety. So so the Freedom Learning Academy will be responsible for the safety of its students. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
It does. Thank you for that. I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Davis, if I
at this
could
time.
too, kind of
Yeah,
follow up
please.
on that. You know, we would definitely be following the Arkansas Facilities Handbook that's out there through Facilities and Transportation. And that would provide, at least in the beginning, your framework for what you would look for in a lease in order to make sure you're following those guidelines.
Yep. Fantastic. Mr. Chair, I have no more questions.
Thank you. Any other questions from the panel? Okay. Mr. Baldwin?
Is this blended model, is it used already by another system, or is this the first time in Arkansas that this has been used?
To my knowledge, it would be the first time in Arkansas.
Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
there's not an example to go look at as far as how they do that?
Oklahoma has an example, probably one. I know California has a couple models that operate it there as well. I've had conversations with all of those entities,
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So we do have one charter that is a hybrid model, which is similar to blended. That's Lisa Academy.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's one that we do have that's an example. Any other questions? Dr. Wright McMurray?
So I guess just again for my clarification, the 2 days a week that a student is expected to go to the learning center,
Yes, ma'am.
they're not set days for that student. It is just within the Monday through Friday period. They just have to report 2 days, and I guess what is determining what those 2 days will be, and when they're there,
Right.
is it like a traditional school day that they're there for those 2 days? I'm just trying to
Right.
get clarity there.
The requirement would be that they were there for those 2 days. Whatever the school day is set, which would probably be somewhere between 8 o'clock and 3:30, like the normal. They would have a lunchtime in there, breaks, those sort of things, and they would be in that learning center doing their best, during that time period. Going back to there would be a normal set day. For example, since we're doing 5 through 12, 5th grade would meet Tuesdays and Thursdays. I guess the point that I was trying to make is that we're wanting this to be a flexible program for parents. If a Tuesday and Thursday do not work out well for a particular group or for a particular parent, they can make adjustments to that schedule to come in at a different time, or a different day, I guess.
But they
We're trying to accommodate parents and their needs is what we would be trying to do.
But they would know that they're coming like at 8 and staying until
Yes, ma'am.
3:30
Yes.
for
Mhm.
those 2 days that is for that particular child.
Right.
And there's not like 5th graders come on Monday. It's just whatever grade you're in, whatever teacher's there for that grade.
Right.
They just go to that teacher.
That's correct.
You made mention, as I remember, about they could meet at the coffee shop. How would that model work for
Well,
that situation?
What I'm saying is the other 3 days that are out there, that classroom teacher is gonna make contact with that parent, let's say through Zoom, in the beginning of the day, to answer any questions or to get that student started on their virtual learning. But it may also be that that particular day, they may meet, at a Starbucks somewhere to sit down face to face with a teacher, or our teachers will plan on having those interactions basically calibrated out throughout the year. So they may only meet 4 or 5 times face to face in a different environment than the learning center. They may be meeting in a coffee shop, or the teacher may go to the house of the student, and they may sit there and help the mom and the student while they're doing their virtual learning.
What hours would then specified if they went to the home or the coffee shop? It would
Say
still
that
be.
again.
How do you count the hours of instruction at the home or at the coffee shop?
Right. It would be counted in the normal virtual curriculum that they're working on their computers during the day.
And you have 3 teachers slated for 250 students currently in the budget that we saw today. And they would provide not just at the center, but also other instruction at other times, point in time, other places, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And the 3 teachers, again, the numbers would be, there's a surplus the first year, but if you needed to adjust salaries to get to the point to where by that October 1 date, you had more than. If you had the complete 250, yes, you're gonna have to hire more staff in order to accommodate that. It's gonna have to be certified teachers, to work with those kids. But you may also have high school kids versus 5th and 6th grade, which is different numbers, correct? So you may not know your numbers until then. I mean, we've got Arkansas schools today that are gonna wait until right up to October 1 to hire. So, I mean, from a budgetary standpoint, I would wanna make sure that we're addressing those numbers the right way.
Dr. Reitman, so I guess my other clarifying question, so while there's students that are in person at the Learning Center, the 2 days a week, that are not specified, but this is, so the students that are virtual on their computers, are the teachers at the center also responsible for providing support to them? Or are there different?
Right.
Do you see what I'm trying to ask?
They would
If they're
be,
at the center
yes.
and they're learning, and then there's kids that are online that
Yes.
are learning as well, are they responsible?
They would
for those
be
both those
responsible for making contact within that day on the 3 days that they're off. Now, it may just be that they're getting them going in the mornings and saying, hey, guys, does anybody need any help? Is there anything we can do? Those sort of things. And we may have a runner, that takes things to them if they need it. Let's say, for example, they're out of printer cartridges for their printer. Maybe they need that, and they've made that contact that morning through the interaction, and to be able to work together. That's how it would play out. But that teacher would make that contact daily with the student, and it may be at the end of the day, but sometime that day they would have contact with that student.
So just, to follow up on Dr. Reitman Murray's question, so with the 250 kids that are budgeted and
Yes, sir.
3 teachers, that's 83 students per teacher. And I think we're having a real hard time, grasping that.
Yeah.
And then I would just say, I'm just having a hard time, honestly, with the business model.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to figure out how how you're gonna do this, and get the volume of kids, and I hear that you've reached out to the homeschoolers, but I think that might be, you may have a core group of homeschoolers that would be interested. I'm not sure you're gonna have as many, you're projecting up to 1,000. And, my family homeschooled, so
Right.
I totally understand the mindset of homeschoolers, and they want to a great degree to control their education, and giving that control up to another group is a hard thing. That's just my
Right.
thoughts right now.
And I don't mean to disagree. I just think that there are enough different associations right now, homeschool associations, that would have a connection to a program like this. I really do. I believe that 1,000 is probably not even going to touch eventually, how many students you'll be able to have associated with the program.
And I do think we have to take into account the educational freedom accounts, because those will be things that homeschoolers are taking part in. So we know that there is an influx of those applications, and those funds can be used for private school, for homeschool, so it will cut into your population a little bit.
Oh, sure, and I understand that. I think there's already been, 5,300 I read that have applied for it based on the circumstances this year, and of course that won't be until 3 years from now. And I understand, that's going to give a little opportunity for this concept, to kind of be. I understand that there are some things that we're going to have to, kind of work out, but I do believe that this model is something that can basically, if you're going to take 90% of the funding and basically give to people, why not have it be in a structured environment where you can at least have some sort of input into what the students are doing and how they're operating, and that's the thought process is. It's a different model than going to the freedom accounts to where the parent is basically choosing 100% what they want to do. You're doing some things then in this model that are still connected to, we're using the virtual curriculum from the state. We're doing some things that still make that connection with the state, the testing model, those sort of things. I don't believe that's a requirement of the freedom accounts. I think it's a different way of thinking about it, and it's also something that would help them have that connection to the state still.
Other questions from the panel? No. Dr. Wright McMurray?
I'm sorry, I'm just still trying to, and I guess I'm thinking back to when we first pivoted to the online instruction because of COVID, and we had some students that would be online working with their teachers, and it was a full class of students that were doing that. So I'm trying to, and I know that not in all cases that didn't work out to be the best delivery. So that's when we said we need to kind of figure out a way to have more of a blended version. So I'm trying to kind of fully understand that is not anticipated that this would happen with your model. Is that what you're saying? Because the students that are virtual, that are virtual, they would not hop online when the teacher is in the middle of her specified 2-day instruction. So he or she would have the opportunity during that time to where students are in front of them to not also have to manage the students that are online.
That's right. Yes, their dedicated day when those two, let's say, for example, 5th grade came in on Tuesdays and Thursdays, then that teacher would be dedicated to the face-to-face instruction to those students at the Learning Center. They wouldn't also be responsible then if they had other students that had made different accommodations.
You said they would not be responsible.
That's right. That's right.
So if I'm student during the traditional class day, if I have a need for the teacher, I wouldn't have access to them during that time period because they're in class.
That's right, yes, but we would have perhaps a paraprofessional or someone else that, let's say, for example, if that student sent a message somehow, either a text message or online through their digital learning, we would have a way of giving that student the help they need during that time, yes. And like I said, it may not be with their specific teacher at that time because their teacher's gonna be doing the face-to-face with the students. The rest of the time, it may be somebody else. It may be me that jumps online and says, hey, can I help you? Are you having issues? That sort of thing. But the teacher themselves would not be responsible for maintaining the contact with the kid and with the other at the same time.
So there would be subject matter experts that would be available during the time period to where the teacher is teaching. I'm just thinking, for example,
That would
kid asks me a
hopefully,
math question,
yes.
you're on your own.
Yeah.
Until the math teacher could assist.
Right, and it may be something too to where they have to say, hey, we'll get back to you as soon as possible, those sort of things. But yeah, it would be, the hope would be that everybody would come on the same day. But in order to maintain flexibility, it may be that you have a different setup some days, not every week, but it may be that, for example, homeschool parents travel sometimes. They may go to Williamsburg, Virginia, to on a trip with their family, and it may be something that they come to you and say, well, this week, we're not going to be able to be there for those 2 days out of that week. It would be the same thing in a regular public school if a student, parents came in and said, I've got to pull them because we got to go to, we're truck drivers and we got to go to New York. You got to make accommodations. So that's my point in that, is that we're trying to create something that's flexible for parents, but at the same time provides a minimal amount of structure. Unlike, again, the freedom accounts that are just going to be basically, to do whatever a parent, determines to do with 90% of the ADM.
Would you mind sharing with us what Scott Smith said to you about APSRC not supporting the application? I'd be curious.
Again, I'll go back and say that I probably should have had more interaction with Scott. I didn't know that Scott didn't support our idea. I didn't know that was a requirement that APSRC had to have that. And I don't mean that because I'm saying anything against APSRC. I'm just saying that I didn't know that was a necessity, so therefore we did not
and it's not a
reach out.
requirement.
Yes, sir.
But it's
Yes,
a
sir.
curiosity factor.
Right. It would be my thought process was, number one, I was pretty busy with some other stuff, and I was trying to kind of get things together. And Ms. Graham worked very hard on this program herself. She didn't have the connections there at APSRC. Again, I think that they do great work, and I've worked with them a lot in the past. Kind of surprised that Mr. Walter said what he said about it, because we've had a lot of conversations in the past. Scott and I have about this concept. Like I said, again, in Oklahoma, it's a large, school there that kind of operates this way. Mr. Smith was the one that basically, started talking about it to me, and checked it out. And, there's a lot of good things to be done there with it. I would hope that it wouldn't be a particular circumstance that maybe APSRC wants to have some involvement in it. And I'll be glad to sit down and talk to Scott about it. I think there's two guys that are very influential in the state and have a lot to offer, and that's Scott and definitely Ken Rich. both trusted guys that I would reach out to if we are approved to do so.
Yeah, Mr. Baldwin, what I heard from Mr. Walters at APSRC, and I don't know if he is still there, but the way I took his comment was they have not been involved with this application process. Therefore, you can't assume that they are in support of the application. I didn't think that he meant they are not supportive, but I think that the point that they were trying to make is they have not been intimately involved in this process. And I think that's something different than not supportive of it, right? I think those words were used, but I think it was from the vantage point of we can't support something we have not been involved with.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you for helping me with that.
Ms. Newton?
My concern is the absence of consulting, given all the gaps that I noticed. The guidelines are not clear. There's several things. So my problem is a lack of having someone to advise, because clearly you've come not ready to answer our questions to the extent that they apply to too many critical areas.
Any other comments or questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move not to approve the application
I
of the
second.
Freedom Learning Academy.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, if we'll fill out our voting sheets.
Thank you all very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Do we need to say out loud what we wrote?
I think Dr. McMurray is still typing.
Sorry.
No.
You do still need to read your votes into the record.
Yes, we're waiting.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't know. Ms. Saraceni kept looking at me, and so I just wanted to specify.
Can I look?
Dr. Wright?
And
McMurray?
just a point of clarification,
Yes.
right? Are we voting for the motion to deny, or are we voting against the application? Because the motion was to deny. And
Correct.
so should we not be voting for the motion to deny?
So it's the motion is to deny the application. That's the intent of the motion, correct?
Right, and so we
That's
should be
correct.
voting for the
For.
motion to deny, not against.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a very good point.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. I just realized I'm sometimes the outlier, but on this one I felt like I wasn't. And it just looked different on my screen.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Dr. Wright McMurray?
Okay, so I voted for, although the concept brings forward a different process to offer instruction for homeschool students, the implementation of the model was not clearly stated in the application or testimony. I would recommend that the applicant make efforts to strengthen their application and plan for implementation.
All right. Ms. Saraceni?
I voted for the motion to deny the Freedom Learning Academy based on the lack of clarity in the application and presentation.
Mr. Baldwin?
Yes. I voted for the motion to deny due to numerous uncertainties about the business model effectiveness of the school structure.
Ms.
I
Newton?
also voted to deny based on the guidelines for operation are not clear.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, I'll accept and if there's no new business, I'll accept a motion.
Well, I need to read mine into record.
Oh, I keep forgetting you're online.
That's okay.
I'm so
That's
sorry.
okay.
Mr.
That's
Davis?
all right. I voted for the motion to deny the application due to the number of gaps in the implementation of the curriculum. Although I'm hopeful regarding a new model, additional work needs to be done.
Thank you so much. All right, if there's no new business, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
I move adjournment.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned.
Ms. Summer,
It's always like when I was teaching,
I know
it's always hard
my
to remember
response
that
was
the-
captured.
I know, I'm glad he caught that.
Because I couldn't
I tell
take
you,
my
you're,
photo.
Well, 'cause I